I love Mass Effect. It's one of my absolute favourite game series of all time, if not my favourite. And after my 6th annual playthrough of the series, I got to thinking, why hadn't I played Dragon Age? It's considered one of the best games that BioWare has ever made, as well as one of the best fantasy games. Hell, Inquisition won the first Game of the Year award in 2014. So, why hadn't I gotten around to it? Well, I didn't really have an answer. So I downloaded Dragon Age and played through the whole thing, and all 8 of its DLC expansions. So please, join me as I regale you with my very first playthrough of Dragon Age Origins. Quickly, before I start, if this is somehow your first interaction with anything to do with Dragon Age, and you want to play the game on PC, the PC version unfortunately has a very major bug that has never been fixed and crashes your game if you're running it on too high a settings due to how the game limits how many resources it can use. So, down in the description, I've put a link to a Steam board that should be able to help you fix that issue. The game opens with a quote from the Chant of Light, the Holy Book of Thedas, and a pretty lengthy cutscene explaining to us the history of the Darkspawn. How 400 years ago a group of mages had attempted to usurp heaven, and how their attempts ended up destroying the Golden City with their corruption, and returned to Thedas tainted, becoming the first of the Darkspawn. These Darkspawn were savage and relentless, attacking the lands of man, dwarf and elf alike. These hordes attacked and fell many dwarven kingdoms, and from an underground cave network called the Deep Roads, they would continue to attack until the people of Ferelden believed they were on the brink of extinction. Until one day, a group of people from all races and backgrounds came together to wipe out the Darkspawn. These people were called the Grey Wardens. We are then met with Duncan, the Warden Commander of Ferelden, who explains that the Grey Wardens have fallen into the annals of history, little more than a story or a myth to many, and that there are very few Grey Wardens currently in service. As Duncan stumbles across a group of mutilated bodies, he tells us that their warnings have been ignored for too long, as he's ambushed by 2 Darkspawn Hurlocks before swiftly dealing with them, and sharing his fears that they may be too late to stop the impending blight, as the camera focuses on a strong light coming out of a cavern that connects to the Deep Roads. After the introductory cutscene, we are sent into the character creator, where we are presented with 6 distinct backgrounds, those being the human noble, the city elf, Dalish elf, circle mage, dwarf commoner, and dwarf noble. Each of these backgrounds have their own unique and surprisingly lengthy origin, which acts as their tutorial. These origins can also tie into future plot beats during the story. Initially, I started as a human noble warrior with a family named Kusland, who was attacked in her own castle and betrayed by Arl of Redcliffe, the knight of the player character's brother, Fergus Kusland. He's King Caelim's court for men at Ostagar. However, I decided to change character after remembering that Dragon Age 2 does force you to play as a human, and I wanted to see the world of Dragon Age from all the races' perspectives. Eventually settled on a city elf warrior named Cynthia Tabris on the day of her wedding. We wake up and are greeted by our cousin Shiani, telling us that our husband has arrived to the Denerim alienage early. In the world of Dragon Age, the elven people used to be enslaved by humans, but have since been freed, and the elven people split into 2 groups. The Dalish elves, who live nomadically, trying to regain and relearn their lost culture, and the city elves, who have attempted to integrate into human society, living in segregated communities called an alienage, which are only found in the larger cities and face discrimination from the human population, often used as scapegoats for the problems in human society. Well, after leaving our house, we meet up with our other cousin, Soris, who's also getting married, and go to meet our betrothed, when the Arl of Denerim's son, Vaughn, starts harassing the women in the alienage, inciting his lackeys to...
It's a party, isn't it? Grab a whore and have a good time.
After we get involved, Shiani hits Vaughn over the head with a bottle, and his 2 goons carry him away, as both Soris and ourselves are finally allowed to meet our soon-to-be bride and groom, Valora and Neloros. After they leave, Soris somehow notices that another human's entered the alienage, despite the massive Venadal tree obscuring his view, and is concerned that his presence may cause trouble. Whether that be caused by him or some drunk elves. When we go to ask him to leave, he congratulates us on our weddings, which we thank him for, but ask him to leave to avoid any unpleasantness. Despite telling him that the alienage is not a very safe place for humans to hang around in, he refuses to leave. After a back and forth between us, which the human responds to every reason with "nah-ah," he subtly threatens us by stating,
"Surely it does not escape your notice that I am both armed and armored. Any fight between us would be rather one-sided."
We plead one more time for him to leave, but eventually challenge him to a fight, to which he declines, but says he's very impressed with our bravery. Eventually, Veilguard steps in, saying that the world has far more use for people who can leverage diplomacy, and welcomes the human as our old friend. We apologise to him as we had no idea he was friends with the Elder, and he apologises to us for being unbecoming.
"I was hardly forthcoming, and for that I apologize."
Veilguard then introduces him to us as Duncan, head of the Ferelden Grey Wardens, of which Veilguard seems to have a deep respect for, regardless of who they are. Then announces that a blight has begun, and King Cailan of Ferelden has summoned all Grey Wardens to Ostagar to fight alongside his armies and fight against the ensuing Darkspawn hordes. This doesn't really answer Veilguard's question of why he's here, but judging by his reaction, he knows the answer.
Yes, I have heard the news. Still, this is an awkward time. There is to be a wedding, too.
After being told that this is a bad time, and that there are soon to be weddings, Duncan assures Veilguard that what he needs can wait until the celebrations have ended, and that he shall speak to us later. We leave Duncan to his business, and the ceremony begins. We meet back up with Nelaros and Valora, as a Chantry mother arrives to officiate the wedding. As the mother begins, she is interrupted by Vaughn, back to kidnap women for his party. When the mother protests, stating that this is a wedding, Vaughn replies with,
If you want to dress up your pets and have tea parties, that's your business. But don't pretend this is a proper wedding.
One of Vaughn's men gets his hands on Shiani, we don't stand for it, and stand up to Vaughn, which rewards us with a backhand slap around the face, knocking us out cold. Taken on the floor of a storeroom in the Arl of Denerim's estate, surrounded by other women who were taken, including Shiani and Valora. As we rise, guards enter the room to escort us to Vaughn's chambers. One of the elves protests and is promptly struck down, as they take the rest of the captives to Vaughn. Two guards are about to bind us as Soris enters the room and throws a sword to us as we enter combat. We fight our way through the Arl of Denerim's estate, defeating a handful of guards as we stumble across Nelaros, as he's struck down by another post of guards. With little time to mourn, we continue onwards, defeating even more guards and their guard dogs until we reach Vaughn and Shiani. Unfortunately, we're too late to save her from Vaughn, but we can still get revenge for her. He even tries to strike a deal with us, but after what he's done, he's lucky we even let him speak before we cut him down. Soris makes sure that the other women Vaughn kidnapped are safe, as we check on Shiani. She's understandably a wreck, only caring to know if we killed every human in the estate. We rush back to the alienage, and are met by Veilguard and Duncan. We inform Veilguard that Nola, the elf that stood up to the guards, and Nelaros are both dead. Valora, Shiani and the rest of the elves leave, as Veilguard asks Soris and I about what happened at the estate, and as we tell them of Vaughn's death, Denerim city guards arrive. They've come seeking the elf that slew Vaughn, so we come forth alone, keeping Soris safe from accusation. To which the guard captain commends us on our courage. But before they can take us away, Duncan incites the Grey Warden's right of conscription, releasing us into his custody. We are now to become a Grey Warden. Duncan gives us time to say goodbye to the people of the alienage before we must leave. After a few days' trek, we arrive in Ostagar, a bastion of the city made to prevent the people who live in the Kolkari wilds from invading the rest of the world, and is where the Grey Wardens will make their stand against the Darkspawn. We are greeted by none other than Cailan, King of Ferelden, who is very excited to see Duncan. He introduces himself to us, but Cynthia cares little for the human king, under whose rule enables the mistreatment of her people. He asks about life in the alienage, curiously, revealing that he hasn't been permitted entrance by his guardsmen and is genuinely clueless about the conditions, as we tell him about our dealings with the Arl of Denerim's son, which shocks him. Duncan and Cailan talk about the upcoming battle. Cailan's confidence of their sure victory is palpable, but Duncan is sure to reel him in, telling him that quelling a blight won't be as easy as he thinks. Cailan doubts if this is even a real blight, as there have been no reports regarding an archdemon, with a hint of disappointment as he regales tales of the Grey Wardens, and that he wishes his battles with them would be like the stories, and leaves. Duncan confides that he believes Kaelin is massively overconfident, and that the Grey Warden's numbers in Ferelden are far too few, so they must use forces of Terran low gain to make the difference. He then sends us to find Alistair, so that we can begin the joining. On our way to find Alistair, we talk to Wynne, one of the mages sent from the Circle, and she tells us about the origin of the Darkspawn, the same one as the one found in the Book of Phaedrus in the intro, and theorises whether it's fact or rather allegorical. We also come across a dog trainer who asks us for help in saving a dog that's suffering after consuming Darkspawn blood, who we agree to help. We come across Alistair talking to one of the Circle mages, passing on a message that the revered mother desires his presence. The mage leaves after a swift argument between the two. Alistair walks over to us, saying that,
You know, one good thing about the Blight is how it brings people together.
before asking if he's met us before, hoping that we aren't another mage. Quell his worries and introduce ourselves as Duncan's new recruit, as Alistair tells us that he'll be accompanying us during the joining. We then return to Duncan, as he scolds Alistair for antagonising the mage from earlier, stating that we don't need any more ammunition against the Grey Wardens. Alistair then gathers the other recruits, Sir Jory of Redcliffe and Davith of Denerim, as Duncan tells us our mission, to collect vials of Darkspawn blood to use in the joining ritual, and to collect ancient Grey Warden treaties from a derelict outpost. As we enter the Kokori Wilds, we are ambushed by a pack of wolves and find a soldier on the verge of death, whose whole troop was ambushed and slaughtered by Darkspawn. Alistair bandages him up and returns him to camp, but Sir Jory is spooked, fearing that if a whole troop of soldiers were slaughtered, then they had no chance of surviving. We continue onwards, slaying Darkspawn, quickly gathering all the blood we need, and arriving at the dilapidated outpost, with no scrolls in sight. As we search, an apostate mage who lives outside the Circle, or as Davith puts it,
Of the wilds.
appears, asking if we are intruders or scavengers. We claim that we are neither, since the tower once belonged to the Grey Wardens, and have come to collect what belongs to us. The witch introduces herself to us as Morrigan, and tells us that the Grey Warden scrolls we seek have been taken by her mother, and offers to take us to her. We take Morrigan up on her offer, and meet up with her mother, Flemeth, who returns the treaties claiming to have protected them ever since the Watchtower was lost, and warns us that the Blight is a bigger threat than even the Grey Wardens realise. We return to Duncan, treaties in tow, and tell him of what transpired. He tells us not to dwell on it, as Morrigan and Flemeth's existence is not Grey Warden business, as we proceed with the joining. Davith is the first to attempt the joining, by consuming the Darkspawn blood we had collected to become connected to the Darkspawn, becoming immune to their taint, and being able to sense it, but he dies upon drinking.
Maker's breath.
I am sorry, Davith. Step forward, Jory.
Next is Sir Jory, but he fears death and draws his weapon on Duncan, who strikes him down. I must say, I did enjoy the small twist of the dubious thief being the one to valiantly sacrifice himself so that he may be able to help others, while the honourable Sir Knight cowers in fear for his life. But anyway, it's now our turn. As we drink from the Darkspawn blood, we fall unconscious and see a vision of the Archdemon, a draconic Darkspawn who commands and blades. We wake up a Grey Warden. Greeted by Duncan and Alistair, we tell them about our vision, which they reveal is normal, and that they will teach us in the coming months. Alistair then hands us a pendant with some of the blood from the joining, a token to remember those who didn't survive.
Wardens in this assault.
You risk too much, Caleb. A Darkspawn horde is too dangerous for you to be playing hero on the front lines.
If that's the case, perhaps we should wait for the Orlesian forces to join us after all.
I must repeat my protest to your fool notion that we need the Orlesians to defend ourselves.
After the joining, Alistair and I are tasked with lighting the beacon that will signal Terran Logain's army to flank the Darkspawn attacking King Caelin's forces.
plan will work, Your Majesty.
Of course it will. The Blight ends here.
As Alistair and I approach the tower, a guard and a circle mage warn us that the Darkspawn have taken the tower and slaughtered all the soldiers inside, so it's up to us to fight through the hordes. It's our way up the tower, slaying hordes of Darkspawn, and are met with our first boss of the game, an ogre. The fight is tough at first, but it taught me two very important things I would carry through the rest of my playthrough. Mages and stuns are king. The circle mage that accompanies us dealt great damage and granted us buffs with flaming weapons, and Cynthia's shield bash repeatedly stunned it, allowing everyone to get good hits in. We defeat the ogre and light the beacon. Only to see that Terran Loghain has ordered his men to retreat at the site. His betrayal seals the fate of Kaelin's army, as we see them being slaughtered at the hands of the Darkspawn, King Kaelin crushed by an ogre, and Duncan ambushed by a Hurlock vanguard.
Pull out! All of you, let's move!
Oh no. Oh shit. No, he's Gregonant. Atop the tower, we are also ambushed by a horde of Darkspawn, but wake up in Morrigan and her mother's shack. Morrigan explains that Flemeth saved us from the tower, and confirms to us that Terran Loghain abandoned us at the Battle of Ostagar. We exit the hut to meet with Alistair and Flemeth, who are speculating why Loghain fled the battlefield. Alistair tells us that it falls upon him and us to save Ferelden and end the Blight. He suggests going to Redcliffe to meet with Arl Eamon, and reminds us that we also have the Grey Warden treaties to gain support from the elves, dwarves, and the Circle of Mages to use to our advantage.
Grey Wardens can demand aid from dwarves, elves, mages, and other places. They're obligated to help us during a blight.
The Grey Wardens are leaving shortly, girl. And you will be joining them. Such a shame. What? You heard me, girl.
As we're about to leave, Flemeth sends Morrigan to journey with us. After some protest from both herself and Alistair, she suggests we visit a town just north of the Wilds, Lothering. We then cut to Denerim, where Terran Loghain is ordering citizens to band together to defeat the Blight, and to not allow foreign powers to take advantage of Ferelden's weakened state, and vehemently denies Bantegan's claim that he fled the Battle of Ostagar so that he may become ruler in Caelan's absence.
But what of the army lost at Ostagar? Your withdrawal was most fortuitous.
We then return to our party entering Lothering, as we are held up by bandits demanding coins that we can pass. We let them know that they can try and shake down a Grey Warden, but they won't like what they get out of it, which prompts one of the bandits to reveal that the Grey Wardens have a bounty on their heads, that they killed King Caelan and are traitors to Ferelden. Since they didn't want to tussle with a pair of king killers, they let us pass into Lothering. As we enter, Alistair stops us to discuss our plan of action. He yet again reminds us of our treaties and suggests we use them to form an alliance, as well as gaining support from Arl Eamon of Redcliffe. Whilst Morrigan believes we should simply waltz into Denerim to find and kill Loghain. Easy. We come across a Canary in a cage, who introduces himself as Sten. We ask what he did to end up in a cage, and he answers very bluntly that he killed 8 humans and their children. Whilst accepting of his fate, we need every sword we can muster, and tell him we'll free him if he swears himself to ending the Blight. We skip over to the Revered Mother to negotiate Sten's release, but a slip of the tongue causes us to threaten the Revered Mother after she bids us to leave when she discovers we are Grey Wardens, much to Morrigan's amusement. Suffering from immense embarrassment, we leave the Chantry, grab Sten, and leave Lothering. As we're leaving, we save Bodan and his son Sandal from a Darkspawn attack, and they join us along the road. After seeing a vision of the Darkspawn being led by the Archdemon through the dark roads, we wake up. Alistair tells us more about these visions, how they're proof that this is a real Blight. We also see that Bodan has set up a store at our camp, and Sandal was able to enchant our weapons for us. We also meet Levi Dryden, a friend of Duncan's and a man with a proposition for us. Duncan apparently promised to help look into Soldier's Peak, an ancient stronghold for the Grey Wardens back when Levi's ancestor, Sophia Dryden, was Warden Commander, and restore honour to his family name, to which we agree to help him, telling him to meet us there. After we finish up in camp, we leave and make our way to Redcliffe. As we arrive at Redcliffe, Alistair stops and confides in us that Arl Eamon was his adopted father. His mother worked in Redcliffe Castle, and his father was King Merrick, making him King Caelan's half-brother. He apologises for hiding it from us, claiming the idea of being royalty means nothing to him, and he doesn't want us to treat him any differently for it. He goes on to tell us that rumours went around that Alistair was instead Eamon's bastard son. The Earl's wife despised, and shipped Alistair off to a Chantry monastery. He remembers how Eamon would come and visit him in the monastery, but eventually stopped coming after Alistair repeatedly blamed him for everything. But to him, none of that matters now. Alistair believes that Arl Eamon is a good man, and loved by the people of Ferelden, and most importantly, was King Caelan's uncle, and so should have good motivation to go against Terran Loghain. We go to enter Redcliffe, and are stopped by a man who tells us that every night for the past few nights, monsters have come from Redcliffe Castle and attacked citizens of the town, and that Arl Eamon has fallen deathly ill, if not already dead. The man then takes us to Bantegan, Arl Eamon's brother, and the only one keeping people in the town alive. Tegan corroborates with Thomas's story, and so, much to Morrigan and Sten's dismay, we agree to help Ban Tegan drive off the creatures. He tells us to meet with Murdoch, the town mayor, and Sir Perth to strategize before nightfall. Murdoch tells us that they need repairs for their weapons and armor, and that Owen the blacksmith is the only one that can do it, but he refuses. We convince a drunken Owen to work with Murdoch, and in return, we'll look for his daughter, who works in the castle as a maid, yet again to Morrigan and Sten's disappointment.
Oh, lovely. Shall we next begin rescuing kittens, please?
Is this a promise we will not keep?
Let's hope not.
We then meet up with Sir Perth, one of Arl Eamon's knights, who grants us and confides that he feels partially responsible for seeking the Urn of Sacred Ashes, rather than staying with the Urn, believing that he could have saved him. Perth then asks we speak to Mother Hannah about granting the knights some holy protection. We find her back in the Chantry building, but she tells us that is something that she can't do, and that she won't lie about granting them strength, even if it boosts their morale. While searching the town, we find barrels of oil in an abandoned house, and bring them to Perth to use as a trap. With all preparations set, we set for nightfall, to fend off the monsters to which I die. A lot. It was at this point I realised I'm not the biggest fan of Dragon Age's combat. It plays very similarly in my opinion to a lot of MMOs, with spamming abilities off of cooldowns, and party members auto-attacking with regular attacks. It just wasn't very engaging. But the game's tactics system, which allowed me to make strategies for every party member, was nice, meaning I didn't have to micromanage everyone I ran around with, though I often did anyway. The enemies all just also felt very tanky, regardless of what point in the game I was at, and with whatever level weapons and buffs. I just didn't feel like I was doing much damage. Take the defense of Redcliffe as an example. I set up the oil trap, and at most it managed to do about maybe 1/8 of each zombie's HP. So, from this point onwards, I dropped the game's difficulty back down to easy, just so I could enjoy myself. After surviving the onslaught, we speak with Ban Tegan near the bridge to Redcliffe. As he tells us about a plan to get back into the castle, our lesser Isolde, the Jarl's wife, appears, telling us that she managed to escape the castle, and she needs to return soon, and that she needs Tegan to go with her, alone. Isolde sheds some light on what has happened within the castle, that a mage is responsible for what has happened to Arl, and that her son, Connor, has seemingly gone mad and refuses to leave the castle. We press her for more information, and she tells us that something evil has taken control of Connor. Despite Isolde being French,
We want to flee the castle. You must help him, Tegan. His uncle. You could reason with him. I do not know what else to do.
Tegan decides to trust her, but tells us to enter the castle through a secret entrance in the window. After we pass through the secret entrance and defeat some zombies in the dungeons, we meet Joan, the mage responsible for poisoning Arlie. He explains that he takes no pride in what he did to the Jarl, and explains that he had nothing to do with the shambling corpses that roam the castle halls after we accuse him, claiming that he was already imprisoned by that time. He then reveals that he's a Maleficer, a blood mage on the run from the Circle, and was hired by Terran Logain under the impression that Eamon was a threat to Ferelden, in exchange for being pardoned by the Circle. Joan claims that he wants to make things right by helping us save the Jarl. Our party debates what to do with Joan. Sten simply wants to kill him, Morrigan wants to put him to use, and if we have no use for him, to set him free. And Anastair believes we should keep him locked up, as a blood mage is too dangerous to have roaming about.
Hey, let's not forget he's a blood mage. You can't just set a blood mage free.
Better to slay him. Better to punish him for his choices. Is this Alistair who speaks, or the Temple?
I'd say it's common sense. We don't even know the whole story yet.
After some consideration, we release Joan under the condition that he assists us in any way that he can. We fight our way through hordes of undead, as well as some shades, and arrive in the castle courtyard, where we open the portcullis, allowing Sir Perth and his men to enter and assist us. After defeating the Revenant commanding the corpses, we enter the castle's main hall to see a brainwashed Tegan performing for Connor. As we approach, Connor threatens to cut off our ears like he did with the other elves in the castle, as Isolde begs him to stop. The real Connor surfaces, confused, but only for a moment. The demon controlling Connor reveals that it plans on using Connor's status as the Jarl's son to conquer the world during the chaos of the Blight. Connor then runs away as his brainwashed guards and Ban Tegan attack us. after a swift fight, Tegan is freed from his brainwashing, and Isolde reappears, begging us to find a way to save Connor. Joan arrives, telling us that Connor is almost unsavable, but there is a way to save him. Joan explains that the demon possessing Connor is not from our realm, but is instead puppeting him from the Fade, and that a mage could theoretically enter the Fade to deal with it directly, or we could simply kill Connor. He further explains that to enter the Fade, he would need numerous mages and copious amounts of lyrium, a magical substance that enhances the power of mages, neither of which he has, but proposes an alternative. As a blood mage, Joan could cipher the life energy from another person in order to perform the ritual right now, but at the cost of someone's life. Isolde offers herself to be sacrificed to save Connor's life, and whilst tempting, Alistair suggests asking the Circle of Magi if they would help. We decide to pursue this lead, not only to help Connor, but to also put into use one of our Grey Warden treaties. After a day's travel, we arrive at Lake Kellenhad's docks. Morrigan comments on the tower's phallic appearance.
How very fitting that they would build a prison for mages in the middle of a lake and make it look like a giant phallus.
And after persuading the Templar at the docks, we head off to the tower. As we enter Kinloch Hold, colloquially known as the Circle Tower, we are greeted by Templars scrambling to hold and barricade every possible entrance to the tower. Much to his annoyance, we speak with the Knight Commander, Gregor, who informs us that we'll find no help here, as both the Templars and the Mages are preoccupied with an invasion from the Fade. Sten chimes in, stating that occurrences like this are why his people cut out Mages' tongues. Gregor further explains that a horde of Fade monsters took the Templars by surprise, and that he knew that they are no match for the horde. He talks to us about his plan to raise the entire tower and kill every mage and abomination within, but his men are too few in number, thankfully. But he is called for the right of annulment from Denerim, allowing him to purge every mage within. Gregor claims that he doesn't truly wish to neutralise the Circle, but he believes it's his only hope, and that any innocent mage is already dead, that anything still alive is either an abomination or responsible for the slaughter. We offer to help Gregor clear out the abominations. In return, the Circle honours the Grey Warden treaties, and comes to our aid in the war against the Darkspawn. Gregor agrees, but warns us that once we enter the tower, he will not let anyone leave, until he has proof that the Horde is finished, and he will only believe the Horde is vanquished if the first enchanter, Irving, says so. If there is no Irving, the Circle will be purged. After some preparation, we enter the Circle's first floor and encounter Wynne, the mage from Ostagar, fighting a rage demon, which she strikes down with very little effort. Despite recognising us, Wynne is on the defensive and asks why we're here and how we bypassed the Templars. We tell Wynne that we are here to gain the support of the Circle for the war against the Darkspawn. We tell her that Gregor has indeed called for the right of annulment. Wynne laments that while some mages have been able to hold their own against the Fade creatures, they cannot fight back against the Templars and the right of annulment. We ask Wynne what happened to the Circle, and she explains that a mage called Uldred has led a revolt against the Circle after he returned from Ostagar, and that she won't lose the Circle because of his misdoings. Wynne offers to join us if, and only if, we agree to save the Circle from the Purge by saving First Enchanter Irving, to which we agree. It's here where Morrigan pipes up, claiming we should leave the Circle mages to their fate, since it's their weakness and passivity that allowed them to be taken by the Chantry into the Circle in the first place. We're quick to remind her that, if things were different, she could have been one of the mages in this tower, but Morrigan claims that, if that were the case, she would have flung herself from the tower years ago. Regardless, we double down on Morrigan and remind her that she's with us and to follow our lead, much to her chagrin. For the rest of the Broken Circle, we're forced to bring Wynne along, but she remained a main party member throughout the rest of the game for me, alongside Alistair and Morrigan. With Wynne in tow, we begin scaling the tower, fighting through droves of abominations, and, with 2 mages, Dragonage Origins suddenly becomes a lot more simple. Sure, I had reduced the difficulty, but many enemies still felt rather tanky. But with Wynne healing and buffing the team, and Morrigan hitting hard with elemental damage whilst Alistair and I held the front line, it felt like we had a proper team formed. We made our way to the senior mage quarters on the 2nd floor, and find a concerningly calm mage by the name of Owain, who explained that, despite being terrified, he felt that there was little he could do, as he came across Wind's barrier and couldn't get past it, and so returned to the familiarity of the storm. Owain then tells of another mage, Niall, who came by looking for the litany of Adralla. Wynn explains that the litany only works if there is mind control involved, speculates if blood magic is involved, and then implores that we should try and find Niall, and by extension, the litany of Adralla. We leave Owain, and starting on the second floor, we begin encountering blood mages amongst the enemies we deal with. After clearing the first group of blood mages, a lone survivor begs us for mercy, claiming that she never thought or meant for any of what's transpired to happen. She claims that the mages that rebelled were trying to free themselves from the tyranny of the Chantry and the Templars, but Uldred claimed that if the Circle supported Terran Loghain, Loghain would free them from the Chantry, and that using blood magic was only a means to an end for freedom. Wynn chastises the survivor, believing that whilst fighting for what they believe in is commendable, the ends don't justify the means, and what Maleficus have done to the tower is too far. The mage rebuts, stating that changes rarely come peacefully, and that someone needs to toss the first stone. She recounts Andraste, how she waged war against the Tevinter Imperium, formed civilizations, ceased slavery and created the Chantry. Andraste fought back against the injustices of the Imperium for a better life for many people. But in order for this change, people had to die. But still Wynn doubles down, believing that nothing in the world would be worth the destruction they've caused to the tower. The mage then laments that Uldred has gone mad, and the remaining blood mages are doomed to die at either our hands or the Templars. She asks again for a chance at forgiveness, claiming she'd run to the Chantry to seek penance, but Alistair is quick to point out to her that the Chantry won't grant mercy to a Maleficent. Despite this, we grant her mercy and let her leave. After fighting through hordes of shambling corpses, we come across Irving's office, where we find a black grimoire in a chest before we ascend to the Great Hall on the third floor. More corpses, abominations, and demons attempt to halt us, as well as possessed Templars. After a fight with some skeleton archers and lesser shades at the centre of the Great Hall, leaves us walking like I've freshly shat my pants. We defeated a group of charmed Templars led by a desired demon, before walking up the stairs to the Templars' quarters on the fourth floor. We come across another Templar, charmed by a desired demon, feeding him a dream of a happy family. And so we put them down. We enter the centre of the Templars' quarters, and are met by a sloth abomination, and, true to his name, he sends us into a very, very deep sleep. We appear in the Weishaupt Fortress, headquarters of the Grey Wardens, as told to us by Duncan, who appears to be alive and well, and tells us that we defeated the Fifth Blade long ago. Something seems off, however, and due to the Sloth Abomination's failure to accurately mimic Duncan, we are able to see through its trick, and slay the fake Duncan. Alone once more, a pedestal forms before us, taking us to another realm within the Fade, where we meet Niall, who has also been trapped within the Fade. Niall explains the Fade to us, how everything within the Fade is someone dreaming, with the exception of demons and spirits. We go through a portal and speak to the mouse Niall mentioned earlier, who grants us his power, bestowing the ability to transform into a mouse. In this form we are able to burrow through the dirt to appear somewhere else, as well as sneak undetected. Herein lies the gimmick of the Fade. It's a Metroidvania-styled puzzle level that requires us to hop between different realms within the Fade to progress by unlocking forms, like the mouse, to progress in other realms. And I must say, I kind of enjoyed it, although the general consensus seems to be veering towards disliking it. I found it confusing at first, since I assumed each area would be its own self-contained challenge, but as soon as I figured out that I was supposed to adventure elsewhere to find where my shapeshifter forms are needed, it was very satisfying, not to mention the unlockable forms themselves were fun too. After running around the Templar's Nightmare and Darkspawn Invasion realms of the Fade, I realised there was only so far I could go in both with only my mouse form, since there were many walls of fire that would almost instantly kill me. So, I go into the Burning Tower realm. I defeated Burning Templar Dreamer, who after defeat, bestows the Burning Man transformation, allowing me to bypass those walls of fire. In the same room there was also a locked door I couldn't open without massive force, so I would obviously need to come back here later. After trekking through the burning halls of the tower, I find another Fade pedestal, enter the Darkspawn Invasion to tackle the flaming roadblocks from earlier. I pass the fiery blockade to assist the Templar spirit against a horde of Darkspawn, who, similarly to the Templar before him, bestows me with the spirit transformation. Yet again there's another blocked door, so I need to come back here later as well. The spirit form was invaluable in the Mages Asunder realm, which, as the name implies, has mages as the primary enemy, as the spirit form's high fire resistance and melee damage made short work of them. The spirit form also had the ability to interact with spirit objects, mostly comprised as magic and spell power upgrades dotted throughout the Fade. But there's also spirit doors, making the form just as necessary as the others. After fighting through more crazy mages, as well as some lesser raged demons and helping our mage Dreamer with some golems, we are granted the golem transformation. With our golem form, we can now return to the locations we unlocked our other transformations and break through the locked doors, which we do by hurling massive goddamn rocks at them. Before returning to the Burning Tower and Darkspawn invasion, we head further into Mages Asunder, slaughtering more golems and mages. Before long, we come face to face with Slavrin, one of the 5 guardians protecting the sloth demon and keeping us held within the Fade. After absolutely decking Slavrin in the golem form, I head back to the Templar's Nightmare to bequeath the same fate to Veilguard. Now having cleared both Mages Asunder and Templar's Nightmare, a new node on the Fade pedestal is unlocked, transporting us to Morrigan's Nightmare. Morrigan is talking to a Fade illusion of Flemeth and requests our assistance with dispatching it. After dealing with the spirit, Morrigan has a quick bout of dementia, and we go to leave for the Darkspawn invasion, but Morrigan is transported elsewhere. We return to where we unlocked Burning Man, open the door and flatten hordes of Darkspawners for Golem yet again, before clobbering Ufkiel the Crusher and entering Alistair's dream. Here we find out Alistair has a sister named Goldana, and, unlike Morrigan, Alistair is fully entranced by the Fade's illusion, and nothing we say is able to sway him. So we deal with Goldana the best way we know how, with a sword. After we deal with Goldana and her children, Alistair snaps out of his trance and promptly disappears, but not before a split second of deja vu.
Yes, well, try not to tell everyone how easily fooled I was. Are we going now? Wait, where are you going? What's happening to me? Hey! Go, damn it.
We leave for the Burning Tower, which drops us right back where we acquired the spirit form. We clear more hordes of shambling corpses and spirit Templars and dispose of Ragos, just as handily as the rest, and finally unlock Wynne's Nightmare. Wynne is lamenting the students she left behind to help us retake the tower. We try to convince her that they aren't real, and that everything she's experiencing and seeing except us is a product of the Fade, and to only focus on us. Wynne agrees, but admits she's finding it hard to focus on us, as if something is preventing her from concentrating on us. We go to leave, but the dead students rise from the dead, begging Wynne to stay, but she refuses, and we clear the spirits. After dealing with the illusions, Wynne, much like our other companions, suffers from a bout of dementia, and transports away as we go to leave. After freeing Alistair, Morrigan and Wynne, we return finally to Niala in the Raw Fade to kill the final Guardian. Here we finally make use of the spirit form's ability to pass through spirit doors, where we find and kill Yavanna on the other side. After dispelling all 5 Guardian demons, we are granted access to the final Fade realm, the Inner Sanctum, and come face to face with the Sloth demon who's keeping us here. Just as we start talking to Sloth, our companions arrive just in time to join in the fight, making it considerably easier than if we just left them. Sloth tries to gaslight us into staying in the Fade, but we're having none of that, and start combat. Fight with Sloth starts with him in an ogre form, a boss enemy we've come very accustomed to by this point, and put him down quickly. He then changes to a rage demon, another enemy we've become used to, made even easier by Morrigan and Wynne's presence in our party, as they can take advantage of its frost damage weakness with the Winter's Grasp spell. In its third phase, Sloth transformed into an abomination, a surprisingly tanky melee form which stood no chance against my shield dash attacks. In the fourth phase, Sloth becomes a wraith, ghostly enemies we've yet to deal with before, but not even its debuffing aura of weakness could slow down the golem form. The fifth and final phase sees Sloth transform into an arcane horror, a creature we haven't faced as an enemy before, but is the basis for the spirit form. Despite being a new, unfamiliar enemy, Sloth stood no chance against our pure offense, and ironically enough, the use of our own spirit form. When we defeat Sloth, Niall appears surprised by our victory against the demon and tells us to take the Litany of Adrala from his body, seemingly having come to terms with the fact that he isn't coming back alive from the Fade. As we wake from Sloth's dream, we take the Litany from Niall's body, grieving his heroic deed, and make our way through the rest of the Templar's quarters. Defeat more demons and even a clutch of dragonlings before running into a Templar by the name of Cullen, stuck in a magic barrier so strong not even Wynne has seen something like it. We speak more with the Templar, who believes we are an illusion to try and break him like the other Templars, and beg us to kill him if we really are human. Our continued presence proves to the Templar that we are real, and asks if Gregor sent us. When we confirm Gregor sent us, the Templar begs us to not just kill Aldred, but all the mages to make sure no trace of what the Blood Mages have done remains. We refuse, since we came to the tower in search for the mages' help, and climb the stairs to the harrowing chamber on the top floor. We open the door to see Aldred performing a ritual to corrupt the mages, turning them into abominations. We approach Aldred and promptly initiate combat. As soon as combat ensues, Aldred transforms into a pride demon, a towering demon that's corrupted his very being. Throughout the fight, Aldred is supported by abominations and attempts to summon more by converting the kidnapped mages, but clever use of the Litany of Adrala both prevents his summoning and stuns any present abominations. And it's for this reason that the fight can seem a little tricky, since you need to balance dealing with Aldred and his minions whilst also preventing him from summoning any more. If you kill his minions without letting him summon any more, it will just be Aldred on his own. Also, the ritual to transform the mages into abominations takes a very long time, so you have more than enough time to react. That being said, Aldred and his minions do a lot of damage, but this is remedied by the Broken Circle forcing you to have Wynne as part of your party, provided you don't kill her when you first meet her. After a pretty lengthy battle, Aldred is defeated and the mages saved. First Enchanter Irving most importantly, whom we bring to meet with Knight Commander Gregor, much to his surprise. Cullen insists that the mages be placed into lockdown to rout out and kill any potential blood mages, but we dismiss the idea, believing that any potentially remaining Maleficarum are either dead or have fled. We are quick to remind Gregor of our deal, to which he claims that it is now the Templars' duty to watch over the mages. However, they, in turn, are free to help us instead. We turn to ask Irving if we have his word that the Circle of Magi will support us in the war against the Darkspawn, to which he agrees. It's here that Wynne also asks permission to go on leave to support us in our fight against the Darkspawn, to which he also agrees, albeit reluctantly. Before we leave, despite asking so much of Irving already, we ask the Circle for help at Redcliffe Castle pertaining to Connor, the reason we came to Kinlochhold in the first place. Irving yet again accepts. A life is at stake after all, and he wishes to prevent any loss. He says he'll gather some mages and head out immediately. As we leave the Circle Tower, we cut to Denerim, where Arl informs Terran Loghain that the Banon region of Ferelden is demanding he step down as king, and they are amassing an army. Civil war is on the horizon, despite the Darkspawn invasion. He also notes that some Grey Wardens have in fact survived his betrayal at Ostagar, and that they are likely to act against Loghain. Hal has a solution in place already, with Loghain's permission, as we are met with a Dalish elf offering the services of the Antivan Crows, a guild of assassins and spy masters. Loghain reluctantly agrees to the services of the Crows, as the elf leaves. We return to Redcliffe Castle, and meet with Irving, Joan, and Isolde. Irving tells us that they brought all they need, and can start the ritual at any time, asking who it is we want to enter the Fade, to which we elect Morrigan. She enters the Fade and comes across Arl, who is also trapped within, but refuses to listen to Morrigan as she tries to make him understand the situation. Morrigan then comes across Connor and demands to know where the demon possessing him is, but Connor refuses to tell and begins convulsing, shifting between his form and that of a Desire demon, proving that the demon has latched on tightly to him. The demon finally emerges and starts attacking Morrigan, whom she loses to quickly. Morrigan finds Connor again, but he seems utterly convinced that she is the one who poisoned Demon, causing the Desire demon to emerge yet again with backup. Once more, Connor is found by Morrigan, and yet again the demon that emerges is felled. Morrigan enters through a portal and finds the Desire demon standing, not hiding, and begins talking to Morrigan, stating that she doesn't want to fight, and wishes to speak instead. but she knows better than to deal with devils, and faces the demon in a battle, one that Morrigan wins easily. After the demon is defeated, we are shown the people of Redcliffe grieving, as a funeral pyre burns the bodies of those lost to the curse. After the funeral, we are met with Bantegan, stating that Connor remembers nothing of what happened, and he is to be sent to the Circle of Magi after the Blight ends. Joan is also held in the Redcliffe dungeons until Eamon recovers from his coma. Isolde claims the Urn of Sacred Ashes will revive Eamon from his state, and we promise to retrieve them. We return to camp where Alistair thanks us for what we did for Redcliffe, and we also gift him his mother's amulet. He reveals the night before he was sent to the Chantry, he threw it against the wall, and asks where we found it. We tell him we found it repaired in the Jarl's study, and tell him he probably meant to give it back to Alistair at some point, to which he wonders if he brought it with him to the monastery, not that he would have given him the chance to speak. Before we leave, Alistair thanks us for finding something he thought he lost to his own stupidity. We also hand Morrigan the black grimoire we found in the first enchanter's office back at the tower, which she tells us is in fact one of Flemeth's, and in very un-Morrigan fashion, she genuinely thanks us, and says she will begin studying the grimoire right away. As we leave camp, we are met again with Arl Howe meeting Terran Loghain with bad news, only for Loghain's daughter, Honora, to interrupt, and what he hopes to gain, and why he isn't uniting Ferelden against the Blight. Loghain believes this isn't a true Blight, and that it was only King Caelan's fantasy that made it seem to be. Arl Howe then butts in, claiming that if the civil war continues, they may not have enough soldiers to fight the Darkspawn, Blight or not, and Honora suggests they should ask Orlais for help like Caelan did. Loghain detests the idea. He didn't fight for Ferelden freedom from Orlais, only to crawl back to them for help. We cut back to our party, coming across a woman asking for help with her broken wagon, only for her to lead us straight to the Antivan Crow from earlier, who gives a signal, and within seconds we are surrounded, with our escape blocked. Despite their numbers, they go down quick, and we tie up the leader for questioning. He, however, happily gives up any information we could have wanted. His name is Severin, he is a member of the Antivan Crows, and he was hired to kill the surviving Grey Wardens. When pressed, he also reveals that Loghain hired him to kill us, and that he owes him no loyalty. Severin tells us that he himself wasn't paid for the job, but the Crows were, and that the only reason he works for them is because they own him. Literally. Severin asks to join us after all is said and done, because, since he failed to kill us, the Crows in turn will try to kill him. Despite his apparent lack of loyalties, we allow him to join us. After our tussle with Severin, we stumble into Soltier's Pass to begin the first DLC, the Stone Prisoner. We speak to Felix de Grosbois, a merchant who's become stranded after his mule ran off, who's had a string of bad luck and offers us a golem control rod, claiming he'll never get to use it, so we might as well go to someone who could. He points us to Honleaf, as that's where we'll find the golem that the rod controls. When we arrive, the village is under attack by Darkspawn, Shocker, and O. After cleaning the Darkspawn by the entrance, Alistair approaches us with a favour to ask, if we ever find ourselves in Denerim. To look for his half-sister, Goldana, the same one from his dream in the Fade, to which we agree. We then quickly go back to slaying Darkspawn. In the centre of Honleaf, our prize is found frozen in place in a pose of rage. Or maybe anguish. Regardless, We attempt to use our control rod, despite Wynne informing us that it might be damaged, and utter its command phrase, Dulefgar, only for nothing to happen. I never thought I'd feel ripped off after getting something for free. We try once more, but conclude that if our control rod is not the one that controls the golem, the one that does must be someone within Honleaf. We enter a cellar that has even more darkspawn in it, and deal with them the same way we've done to every single one beforehand, until we come across civilians of Honleaf hidden behind a magic barrier. After saving the villagers, one of them asks how we found them. When we tell them that a merchant told us about Honleaf, he becomes quite aggravated. He is immediately aware that we are here for Shale, the golem parked outside. Matthias tells us that his mother was the one who sold Shale's control rod after it killed his father, Wilhelm, a supposedly great mage. He then tells us that his mother likely gave away the wrong command code when she sold it, that he's willing to give us the code if we help him save his daughter. We head towards the laboratory where Amalia ran off to, and fight some dust wraiths and shades on the way. When we arrive at the laboratory, we find Amalia safe with Kitty the cat. Amalia refuses to come with us, saying that Kitty would be lonely if she left, to which Kitty agrees. It turns out that the extremely creepy taxidermy-looking cat is a demon, surprising no one, and it offers us a deal. Kitty is unable to leave the laboratory, trapped there by Wilhelm decades ago, but if we shut down the barrier and let the demon possess Amalia, it will go back to Matthias pretending to be Amalia. To disable the barrier, we must complete a puzzle, creating a link from the power source to the end. After completing the puzzle, we take the opportunity to attack Kitty. Amalia runs away to safety whilst we defeat the Desire Demon and its Rage Demon minions. We fight our way back through more shades until we find Matthias with Amalia. Matthias is elated to see his daughter again, and upholds his end of the deal, giving us the command phrase, Dulen Han, but advises against using it. We step outside and are before Shale once more. We utter the golem's command phrase, Dulen Han. Shale shakes and creaks to life, seemingly having to break itself free from stasis.
I knew that the day would come when someone would find the control rod.
Shale seems less than grateful we freed it, sarcastically saying that we probably just stumbled across the rod. Which is accurate. Shale then mentions that it's been very much awake and aware the entire time it's been frozen, watching children dance around it every day. Shale seems less than pleased with Morrigan and Wynn's presence, after Morrigan fairly claims Shale should be a little grateful we freed it, but seemingly Shale has a disdain for mages. It then, rather bluntly, asks if all the villagers are dead, to which Shale is disappointed to find that they aren't. We ask if Shale has a name, I guess assuming Shale was a name given to it during its 30 years of being a statue. It jokes that it might have forgotten its name after being simply referred to as Golem for so long, going on with all the menial tasks Wilhelm would give Shale, whilst degrading it down to Golem. It's here Shale has a revelation. It begs us to give it a command, to which it has not had the compulsion to oblige, despite us having the control rod. Shale has free will, and it feels at a loss here. After so long being either ordered around by an insipid mage, or being a village decoration, it doesn't know what to do. We offer for Shale to come with us, to which it agrees, since it has no idea what else to do. And with that, we leave Honleaf and head to camp. We speak with Morrigan, as she's begun reading the grimoire we gave her. She claims that the tome doesn't contain the knowledge that she wished to find, but instead manages to disturb Morrigan. Flemeth's secret to immortality. Morrigan mentions how there have been many witches of the wild, but that she has met not one besides Flemeth, except that she has. Every witch of the wild has been Flemeth. When she's nearing the end of her natural life, she raises a daughter, and when the time is right, she takes over her daughter's body. Morrigan comes to one conclusion. Flemeth must die. She asks us to go to Flemeth and kill her, but Morrigan cannot be with us when we do it, or she'll likely be able to take control of Morrigan's body there and then. Once done, we must also retrieve Flemeth's grimoire from her shack and bring it back to Morrigan. After that very deep and melancholic discussion with Morrigan, we go over to Alistair and flirt a little. He then gives us a rose he picked up back in Lovering. Afterwards, Alistair also teaches us the Templar subclass. After the night at camp, we return to Flemeth's hut to kill her. Upon initiation of combat, Flemeth turns into a towering dragon, thoroughly and swiftly wrecking us. After that humiliating encounter, we decide to pivot out of the Kakari Wilds and instead heading into the Brazilian forest to meet with the Dalish elves. When we arrive at the Dalish camp, we are initially shooed away, but we manage to convince the guardswoman to let us into the camp to meet their leader. Mithra leads us to Zafrian, the Dalish elf keeper, a chronicler of ancient elven lore, who is initially cold and dismissive of us, stating that the Dalish have their own problems, although this washes away when we reveal our Grey Warden status. Zafrian initially believes we're warning them regarding the Darkspawn, but he claims he was already aware of their presence, having sensed them, and that they would have retreated north already if they were able. He then mentions the treaty the Dalish signed with the Grey Wardens centuries ago, and apologises that they may not be able to abide by their promise. Zafrian leads us to the medical area of the camp, where many Dalish are lying and writhing in pain, as he explains that werewolves have been hounding them since they entered the Brazilian forest a month ago, and that despite the Dalish's healing prowess, they are unable to cure the infected, and are being forced to kill them before they turn. Zafrian apologises once again, truly wishing to help us, but knowing that his people are unable to. We offer to help the Dalish elves deal with the werewolves. Zafrian tells us of Witherfang, a great wolf with whom the werewolf's curse originated, and that if we kill him and bring his heart back to Zafrian, he will be able to break the curse. Before heading deeper into the forest, we decide to help some elves around camp with their own personal problems. First is Kamen, a snivelling hunter apprentice who wants to be a true hunter, but is unable since they are forbidden from entering the forest. The real problem is Gaina, an elf that Kamen has a big ol' crush on, but according to him, she cruelly refuses to date him. Some real incel shit. We promise to speak to Gaina, if only to shut him in the self-pity up, and upon mentioning his name to her, she seems all giddy. By the seams of it, Gaina actually likes Kamen as well, but mentions that he's been an apprentice for 2 whole years, and has failed to bring back anything to prove himself. Seemingly, Dalish tradition prevents them from bonding because of this. We try to tell her that if she truly loves him, then it shouldn't matter, and that even if Kamen continues to fail, who's to say she couldn't be the one to provide for their family instead? Gaina instead takes this as Kamen's failings being her fault, which, no, and that it's her job to make him happy, and make him believe in himself, before she runs off and confesses her love to him. Honestly, I wish I left the brat to his own devices. We also speak with Alora, who is the camp's Harla herder. The Harla have a similar purpose to the Dalish, as horses have to humans. Regardless, this particular Harla was attacked during the werewolf ambush, but it won't let her close to heal it. Offer to help, but with no avail, and offer to put it down for her, which she denies, saying she'll do it when the time is right, as it's her duty. Also speak to the clan crafter, Varaform, whilst he's teaching his apprentice, and offer to fetch him some iron bark for smithing, and in return he'll make us something. Finally, we speak to Aphros, who tells us that his wife was attacked during the ambush and died from her injuries, but Keeper Zafrian won't let him see her body, and asks us to look for her in the forest, in case she's become a werewolf. Upon delving deeper into the Brazilian forest, we fight through hordes of werewolves and their more standard counterparts, until we're met by a werewolf who talks. The werewolf, Swiftrunner as he's called, confuses us for a Dalish elf, but upon correction, says that it doesn't matter, and the only good elf is a dead elf. He tells us to go back to the camp, and tells Zafrian we have failed, so they can watch the Dalish suffer their same curse. We return that we have no quarrel with them, but he doesn't believe us, since Zafrian only wants to destroy them, not to talk with them. We ask Swiftrunner to help us understand the conflict between the Dalish and the werewolves, but instead he calls us a fool, that we're done talking, and that he doesn't wish to fight us, but the fact that Zafrian has sent us forces his hand before he attacks us. We deal with them swiftly, and they retreat. We fight through more werewolves, some Darkspawn who have managed to get lost in the forest, and some wild Sylvans as we run into Grand Oak. Grand Oak is an elder Sylvan who speaks in rhyme, and asks a favour of us if we have time. We agree, and then I flee, due to another Sylvan that began attacking me. We fight through more werewolves and Sylvans as we come across one werewolf knelt down in pain. We begin speaking to it, and it reveals that they were once a Dalish elf who became a werewolf and were taken in by the werewolves of the Brazilian forest, but they had to return to their clan. The werewolf reveals that she is in fact Danila, Anthras's wife, and asks us to send Anthras a message. We bring him her scarf, and to tell him that she loves him, and that she is dead. We tell her that Anthras is worried about her, but she says, "I wanted to be Denila reveals that the werewolves are no longer mindless, violent creatures, and that they have overcome the curse, evident through individuals like herself and Swiftrunner. Denila finally asks us to put her out of her misery, the pain being too much to bear, which we oblige. During our trek through the forest, Wynne asks what we did before becoming a Grey Warden, telling her that Duncan saved us, and in return we became a Grey Warden. Wynne inquires why Duncan needed to save me, and I tell her about the alienage and Vaughn. Wynne apologises for bringing up a bad memory, and expresses disgust at what people in power like Vaughn will do to their subjects, and gives an example of Templars who do not simply kill Maleficarum they are hunting, but torture, abuse, and inflict other indignities upon them, before finishing the job. Wynne's sorry that what happened to us happened, but is glad we found ourselves as the Grey Wardens. We also speak to Morrigan about life in the Kukari Wilds, about if it was lonely. Morrigan expressed that it may have been boring, but it was all she knew. She would run with birds and wolves, and speak to trees, but eventually she began to wonder what life was like outside of the wilds. She reminisces about the first time she travelled to a town on the border of the wilds in wild shape, and watched the townspeople. She came across a noblewoman in a carriage adorned in gems and jewellery which bewitched the young witch of the wilds, so much that she stole a gem-encrusted gold mirror from the carriage and ran back to the wilds. Flemeth, however, was furious. Morrigan had not yet full control of her powers, but risks being found for a shiny trinket, and so Flemeth smashed the mirror to teach her a lesson. Morrigan was heartbroken, but she claims it was a valuable lesson about how only power and survival have merit and meaning, whilst vanity and love are fleeting, and that without that lesson, she would not be here with us. Whilst she may fantasize about what may have happened if Morrigan had kept the mirror, she knows it's just a fantasy that has no place in the real world. After our little group catch-up, we find a hermit hiding in the woods, and inquire if he stole the Grand Oak's acorn, which he neither confirms nor denies. He then asks to play a game. Ask a question, and he'll give us a question, but give an answer, and he'll give an answer. We tell him we just want the acorn, which angers him, since we aren't playing the game. Here, Morrigan warns us that he possesses a powerful magic, and that we shouldn't anger him unless we want a fight on our hands. We play along, and ask if the man has anything to trade, to which he has the acorn, a helmet, or a book he read years ago, but will only trade if we give him something interesting. We trade the Tale of Ilorin, a book on elven history, in return for the Grand Oak's acorn. We then see a fog barrier, and try to enter, only for it to spit us back out. We return to Grand Oak, the elder tree, with his seed safely, in our possession, and so he gives back the acorn that is rightfully his. Thankfully, he did not forget. For us to find his seed, he was in debt. To us he gave a branch that was the key to pass through the fog with guarantee. And so we say goodbye to our tree-like friend, knowing we will likely never meet again.
I wish thee well, my mortal friend. Thou brought my sadness to an end. May the sunlight find you, thy days be long, thy winters kind, and thy roots be strong. Greetings.
Just past Grand Oak was a small and inviting campfire. Just looking at it made Alistair, Morrigan and I fall asleep, leaving Wynne alone to fend off the shade that created the enervating illusion, and upon its defeat reveals the bones of its victims. Before heading deeper into the forest, we return to the Dalish camp to stock up on supplies, as well as complete the quests we'd picked up earlier. First, we hand over some iron bark we found whilst in the forest to Varathorn. He offers to make us either a bow or a breastplate from the wood, but I tell him to keep the wood since my party has no use for either item. Varathorn is surprised by our generosity, but refuses to let us leave empty-handed, and carves us an amulet from the bark. As thanks. We also speak to Anthrus, telling him the truth about Danila's transformation and subsequent death. He thanks us, and leaves to arrange her funeral. Upon returning to the fog wall, we use the Grand Oak's branch, which allows us to bypass the barrier, where we are once again met by Swiftrunner. We try once again to reason with Swiftrunner to no avail. He knows that we've been sent by Zephyrian to kill Witherfang, and won't risk believing us in case we kill the one who allowed them to regain conscience. Before we can defeat Swiftrunner again, Witherfang appears and attacks us, knocking us to the ground and allowing the werewolves to flee.
We are invaded. Intruders have deceived their way into the forest's heart. Fall back to the ruins. Protect the lady.
We follow the paths werewolves used, leading to some ruins they use as a lair. Upon entering the ruins, we fight through more werewolves as well as giant spiders and even a dragon before descending to the lower levels, where we also encounter skeletons shambling corpses after clearing the hordes from the upper and lower ruins. We, I guess, swim down a bafflingly placed pool of water into the lair of the werewolves. Almost immediately, we fight yet another group of werewolves, as well as shadow wolves, a variant of the werewolf that can turn invisible and often pounces on characters, opening them up to be attacked by multiple enemies. This initial battle was tough, with the ambushing nature of the shadow wolves making quick work of Morrigan and Wynne, which cleared my damage and my sustain. Alastair almost went out as well, but his natural tankiness, as well as good usage of Cynthia's threaten ability, which allowed us to draw enemy aggression away from Alastair and onto ourselves. We are met by a werewolf dubbed the Gatekeeper, who has been sent to issue a parley with us, wishing no more harm to fall upon its siblings, which we could have avoided if Swiftrunner had only heard us out. We agree to the parley, and the Gatekeeper takes us to the Lady of the Forest, a nature spirit who has come to be the leader of the werewolves of the Brazilian forest, as she helped them return from being mindless beasts. She offers to answer our questions, since she claims there are many things that Zephyrian hasn't told us. The Lady of the Brazilian Forest reveals that they attacked the Dalish in an attempt to force Zephyrian to end the curse. They had attempted many times to summon him to negotiate ending the curse, and every time he ignored them. So by cursing the Dalish, Zephyrian would be forced to end the curse, thus freeing the werewolves as well. She implores us to bring Zephyrian to the ruins, believing that if he sees their suffering, he'll cure them, despite Swiftrunner's protests. She tells us that if he doesn't come, he'll never find Witherfang, and consequently never cure his people of the curse. Before returning to the Dalish clan, we check up with Wynne again, who asks what being a Grey Warden means to us. We tell her that it means we've been chosen for an important purpose. Wynne tells us that she believes that it's about serving the people, rather than just slaying the Darkspawn and ending blights, that we are protectors against more than just Darkspawn threats. As we go to return to the clan, we see Zephyrian already in the ruins, checking to see if we've already finished the job, as Morrigan fairly puts it, as he asks if we have claimed Witherfang's heart. We tell Zephyrian that the Lady of the Forest has summoned him, and that she won't summon Witherfang unless he attends. Zephyrian laughs, telling us that the Lady and Witherfang are one and the same, two sides of the same coin. We tell him that the werewolves have changed, that they've regained their minds, which he refuses, claiming that they're the same as they've always been, savages. He agrees to come with us to the werewolf lair, so that he may force Witherfang out and take his heart. We tell him that the werewolves have truly changed, but Zephyrian doesn't care, believing that they are still the same as their ancestors, even if they are no longer mindless beasts. We manage to convince Zephyrian to meet with the Lady of the Forest earnestly by convincing him that the people he cursed so long ago are not the people that are suffering now because of the curse. Despite agreeing to negotiate, Zephyrian continues only to refuse and insult the werewolves and the lady, despite the latter's attempt to reason with him. He claims his retribution is eternal, as is his pain. The Lady of the Forest reveals that, like how her life and Witherfang's are bound, Zephyrian's life is bound to the werewolf curse itself, and as long as the curse remains, so does he. He refuses to perform the ritual, and turns hostile towards the werewolves. We have a choice to side with Zephyrian or Swiftrunner here, and I decide to ally with the werewolves to force Zephyrian to free them from their curse. Zephyrian summons Shades and Sylvans to assist him in battle, but he's no match for my special technique, smashing my shield into his face. The weapon and shield talents has a line dedicated to shield attacks, most of which have stunning properties, which allows me to prevent any human-sized enemy from attacking, so long as they fail a physical resistance check against my strength score. Zafrian does, however, knock me down, leaving Alistair to deal the final blow, if just barely. He promptly surrenders, and the Lady of the Forest has to stop Swiftrunner from killing him then and there, telling him,
"No, Swiftrunner. We will not kill him. If there is no room in our hearts for mercy, how may we expect there to be room in his?"
Zafrian claims he's too old to know mercy. When he sees the werewolves, all he sees is his children and the people he's lost. We remind him that this curse is affecting his people now, which helps him see that his long life and lust for revenge has corrupted him. He asks the lady if she's afraid of dying, which she responds that he created him. Everything that he felt, love, pain, fear and hope, is because of him, and that she wishes for it to end too, to show mercy to not only the werewolves, but to her as well. Finally, Zafrian agrees to end the curse.
You will do it? You will end the curse?
Yes, I think it is time. Let us put an end to it all.
After the ritual, humans stand free of their lycanthropic prison and share their plan to try and reintegrate into human society as they thank us before running off to their new lives. Wynne, seeing this as the perfect opportunity, decides to talk to us about our relationship with Alistair. Wynne asks for us to break off our relationship, since she foresees the potential for tragedy, since we have great responsibilities being Grey Wardens. We ask her what experience she has, seeing as she's never left the tower, as she answers that she has more experience than she'd like to tell, and ponders that maybe this isn't a lesson that could be taught, and must be experienced. On that note, we return to the Dalish camp, where Lanaya has already taken over as the clan keeper, and notes that the sick elves are no longer afflicted with the curse, but laments that Zafrian had to die for it. Lanaya then swears the Dalish elves' support to the Grey Wardens against the Darkspawn. On our travels towards Denerim, we find ourselves in the lands of Ban Loren, where soldiers of his have a man surrounded. Upon closer inspection, we recognise the man from Ostagar as one of King Kaelin's honour guards. We wait for the guards to leave before speaking to him, but suddenly they stab him and leave him for dead. We approach Elric, who recognises us as Duncan's latest recruit at the time of the battle. He tells us that he was imprisoned by Ban Loren after deserting the Battle of Ostagar. Elric tells us that he was entrusted with a key by King Kaelin that unlocks the Royal Arms chest, and that should anything happen to Kaelin, Elric should hand it over to the Grey Wardens. However, Elric admits that he stashed it in his camp before the Battle of Ostagar, afraid he would lose it on the battlefield, which is just as well, as it would have ended up in Ban Loren's hands if he didn't. He implores us to return to Ostagar and retrieve the key, as well as a special document the king signed, and the sword of King Marek, Kaelin and Alistair's father. We leave Elric and return to Ostagar. We return to snow-strewn ruins, still rampant with Darkspawn. After fighting through an initial horde, we find a surprisingly healthy Mabiri hound in the cage, the same hound we helped to calm down before the Battle of Ostagar. At Wynne's behest, we feed him something from our pack and send him back to camp, naming him Hog the dog. We get ambushed by a group of Genlock rogues, accompanied by some Blight Wolves and a Hurlock Vanguard. Defeating the Vanguard allows us to retrieve King Kaelin's shield. Scouring the Grey Warden camp reveals Elric's key buried next to a statue, allowing us to unlock Kaelin's chest and obtain Marek's sword. Kaelin's shield and Marek's sword are designed to be used as a set, as when used together, they gain a damage and stamina regen bonus. We cross the bridge and find Cailan hung up on a cross in strangely good condition considering not only how long ago the Battle of Ostagar has been, but Cailan being crushed by an ogre as well. We're interrupted by a Hurlock necromancer who summons skeletons to attack us, goading us into walking into a massive group of darkspawn. We retrieve Cailan's greaves and gauntlets from a Hurlock strider and a strategist respectively during the fight, and progress towards the Tower of Ishal, where we retrieve Cailan's breastplate from a Hurlock general. After this fight, we finally teach Morrigan the Fireball spell, easily one of the best spells in the game due to its huge damage and knockback. We enter the tower, fighting through more darkspawn hordes including ogres, bear skarn, and corrupted spiders. We exit the tower onto the grounds of the Battle of Ostagar, and the Genlock necromancer we've been chasing resurrects an ogre, the same ogre that crushed Cailan and was later felled by Duncan. The fight with the Risen Ogre and the Genlock Necromancer goes easily, with myself keeping aggression from the ogre on me, and Morrigan being able to melt the Necromancer's summons with fireballs. Upon the defeat of both bosses, the ogre rewards us with Duncan's sword and dagger, and the necromancer rewards us with Cailan's helm, completing the set. We return to Cailan's crucified body and bring him down to have an honourable death. Once all is said and done, we return from Ostagar and head towards Denerim. Upon arriving in Denerim, Alistair asks if we could visit his sister Guldana, as he believes he knows where her house is. Guldana has lived a hard life since being sent away from Redcliffe after her mother died giving birth to Alistair, and tries to squeeze coin out of him by claiming it's all his fault. We give Guldana 15 gold sovereigns, since we have more than enough to spare, but this isn't enough to appease her. We tell Alistair the hard truth, that there's nothing for him here, and we're leaving. Alistair apologises for roping us along and giving Guldana our money. We console him, and tell him that he has others that care about him, that we care about him. A little while afterwards, Alistair stops to thank us for taking him to see Guldana, and for talking with him afterwards, and to tell us he loves us. Wynne also apologises for how she spoke in regards to our relationship with Alistair, claiming that she sees we truly love each other. We also run into Sir Laudry, who recognises us as a Grey Warden and demands to fight us, claiming that we killed King Cailan and his friend at Ostagar. We try to tell him that Terin Loghain has lied about Ostagar, but Laudry accuses us of slander on top of treason. We tell Laudry that if he doesn't shut up, we'll shut him up, permanently, which causes Laudry to walk off, knowing he can't beat us. We then try to enter the alienage to see Shiani or Soris, but the alienage is locked off, after Arl Rundin Howe, the new Arl of Denerim, purged some of the elves within after we killed the last Arl of Denerim's son. We also head over to the Pearl, a brothel situated near the centre of Denerim, at the request of Sergeant Kylon, to drive out mercenaries who've been causing trouble, but request we try to avoid killing them. Despite talking the talk, they flee without even needing to threaten violence. We turn around to see a woman beating off 3 men at once. Not like that, like fighting, she's fighting off 3 men at once. So Morrigan decides to help her by shooting a fireball to clear them off. After helping Isabella out, she quickly notes that we're a Grey Warden, and is happy to see another powerful woman. She refers to herself as a duelist, someone who fights with speed and wit, and we ask if she could teach us. She notes that we may not be able to get the finer things down, but maybe we could teach someone else in our group. Before she teaches us, however, we must play her in a game of Wicked Grace. We play a couple of games with Isabella, but she beats us every time, until we catch her hand as she draws, revealing she's been cheating. Upon being caught, she reveals that the game meant nothing, only wishing to see if we could outwit her, as she agrees to teach us. On our way back through Denerim, we run into Kylon before a White Falcon commander ambushes us in the street. After defeating the mercenaries, Kylon pays us promising more coin if we continue to work with him. Before returning to the central market, we run around a couple of back alleys, clearing out criminals and the like. We also come across a dead Templar, with a note leading us to an abandoned building full of Maleficarum, which we clear out. Back on track, we enter Genetivi's home, where we find Waylon, his assistant, who we question regarding Brother Genetivi and the Urn of Sacred Ashes. Wayland tells us that Genevieve hasn't returned for some time, after leaving to look for the urn, but points us towards the spoiled princess at Lake Kellenhad. We speak to the innkeeper, who claims he doesn't know what we're talking about, but he seems off. When we press him on it, he cracks, telling us people are watching him and his family, and to leave quickly and to be on our guard, since they're looking for anyone searching for Brother Genevieve. We leave and are ambushed by cultists, which we deal with easily. We return to Denerim to interrogate Wayland, since he told us to seek out the spoiled princess where we were ambushed. Upon returning, Wayland reveals himself to be a member of the Andraste cultists and commits suicide by way of attacking us. We search the house and find research that notes that Genevieve left for the town of Haven. We are greeted in Haven by a very sketchy guard, who claims that we have no business here in Haven, otherwise someone would have notified him. He grants us permission to trade at the shop, but tells us we are to leave as soon as possible. We walk through Haven, making our way to the chantry where everyone appears to be. We enter to see the revered father of Haven, Irek, leading a congregation which we rudely interrupt.
This sacred duty is given to us alone. Rejoice, my brethren, and prepare your hearts to receive her. Lift up your voices and despair not, for she will raise her faithful servants to glory when her... I understand that you are new here, but common courtesy dictates that one shouldn't interrupt. No matter. We were just about done here anyway.
We ask Irek about Genevieve, which prompts him to speak of his disdain for outsiders, how they change Haven from how it used to be, and attacks. After this, the whole town of Haven is hostile, and after defeating Irek, we take a medallion off his body, and use it to open a secret passage where Brother Genevieve is being held. We wake him, and quell his fears that we're here to kill him. He sits up, but it appears his foot is in pain, and according to Morrigan, it may have to be amputated. He informs us that he has found the location of the Urn of Sacred Ashes, and it just so happens to be atop the mountain near Haven. We tell Genevieve we need to find the urn, since it's the only way we may be able to save Arl of Redcliffe. This shocks Genevieve, but he assures us that the urn will save Eamon, and that they lie in a temple atop the mountain. We arrive at the doors of the temple. Genevieve uses a key to open the door, but is enraptured by the architecture of the temple. Being that Brother Genevieve is the first person from outside of Haven to find the Temple of Andraste, he asks to stay behind to study. Genevieve makes sure to note that we won't find the urn with malice in our hearts, and quotes scripture from the Chant of Light.
But only the faithful shall lay eyes on the sacred ashes. Death and misfortune await the unbeliever. The Maker's gaze has fallen on Andraste's final resting place. He weeps for his beloved, and his wrath at her betrayers endures.
We leave Genevieve in the temple's main hall as we venture to find the urn. We search the temple's halls for keys to progress, fighting numerous cultists along the way, even having to save Brother Genevieve after returning to the main hall to find him surrounded. Fighting through the cultists, and making our way through the temple leads us to a cave system where the cultists have managed to tame dragons, as they have dragonlings and drakes fighting alongside them. Near the exit to the cave, Colgrim, the leader of the Disciples of Andraste, confronts us, demanding to know why we've come. He further adds that if we continue, Andraste herself will strike us down after smelling the blood of her followers on us, believing that Andraste is the high dragon found atop the mountain, reincarnated. We tell him we seek the Urn of Sacred Ashes, after Colgrim notes they have no need of the ashes now that Andraste has risen again. After hearing this, he offers us a way to repent for killing his followers, which we refuse despite Morrigan's protests, as we tell her that they'll likely kill us afterwards anyway. After defeating Colgrim and his followers, we exit the caverns onto the mountaintop to see Andraste land to rest. Not wanting to deal with a high dragon, we cut across the mountaintop, beelining to the gauntlet. We are met by the Guardian, an ageless human and one of Andraste's original followers. The Guardian tells us that we are to prove ourselves worthy if we wish to reach the Urn by facing trials in the Gauntlet. As an example, the Guardian smacks us right in the face by asking if we believe we failed Shiani because we failed to save her from Vaughn. We express guilt that we weren't strong enough to stop her from being taken, which the Guardian accepts. He then asks Alistair if he believes he could have saved Duncan during the Battle of Ostagar by sacrificing his life for Duncan's, which Alistair confirms, and believes that if he was dead and Duncan was alive, everything would be better off. The Guardian then turns to Wynne, asking if she truly believes the advice she has given to others, or if she is simply and mindlessly echoing the beliefs of the Circle and the Chantry. Wynne admits that of course she doubts herself sometimes, as only a fool doesn't. He then turns to Morrigan, who refuses to answer any of his questions. The Guardian, satisfied with our answers, opens the door behind him and allows us to start the gauntlet.
Good luck, and may you find what you seek.
The first trial is a series of 8 riddles which we must answer correctly or else an Ashwraith appears to attack us. We pass the riddles one by one. Mercy, jealousy, home, dreams, attuned shit. Vengeance, the mountains, hunger. After passing the riddles near flawlessly, we progress to the next chamber, where we are met by Shiani, or, well, a projection of Shiani. She asks us if we still remember where we came from, now that we're respected despite being an elf. We tell her we wish we could free everyone in the alienage, but she tells us that will take time. Shiani assures us that what happened to her wasn't our fault, and grants us an amulet before disappearing. The next trial, our party is pitted against a spectral copy of ourselves, which should be the hardest challenge in the game, but apparently we're so good even clones are no match for us. The next trial then sees us forming an illusionary bridge by stepping on tiles, which, after a few mess-ups misremembering who's activating what, we pass. The final trial sees us casting off the trappings of a worldly life, and cloaking ourselves in the goodness of spirit, king and slave, lord and beggar, be born anew in the Maker's sight, which requires us to unequip all of our gear and pass through the wall of fire. Upon completion of the final trial, the Guardian appears telling us that we have proven ourselves worthy. We approach the urn and take a pinch of ashes to return to Arl Eamon. We return back down the mountain to the main hall of the temple where we left Genetivi and display the ashes of Andraste, which gives him the spark to start expeditions to the temple to study. On our way back to Redcliffe, we rest at camp and have a vision of the Archdemon, where it appears to notice us. Alistair and I awaken, having had the same vision, as the camp is attacked by Darkspawn forces. After defeating the Darkspawn, we continue to Redcliffe and arrive before Ban Tegan to present the ashes. Thanks to the ashes, Eamon awakens, confused with no memory of what has transpired. Isolde and Tegan catch Eamon up on all that's happened since he fell ill. Once caught up, Eamon dedicates himself to the Grey Wardens in the war against the Darkspawn, and dubs us the champion of Redcliffe for saving him and his family. We begin to plan how to deal with Loghain. We can't fight both his forces and the Darkspawn. If we're to win either war, we must force him to surrender. Eamon vows to spread word of Loghain's treachery, which despite being without proof, should be enough to make his supporters question him. He then proposes we need someone with a greater claim to the throne than Honora. Alistair. Despite protests, Alistair understands that it makes the most sense out of those with a claim to the throne. Eamon tells us that he will set up a Landsmeet, summoning all of Ferelden's nobility in Denerim for a royal court, and that it will take place when we are ready. Then comes the case of Joan, and what to do with him. Joan is brought before Eamon to defend himself, and asks if we have anything to note. We mentioned that he was willing to cooperate, although he had little choice. With our faint praise in mind, Eamon sentences Joan to death, a fate he accepts. Whilst we wait for Eamon's forces to summon everyone for the Landsmeet, he suggests we set out to gather more support for the war, leaving us to gather support from the dwarves of Orzammar. Before heading to Orzammar, we decide to wrap up a few loose ends, starting with Flemeth. It's been a while since we had our asses kicked by her, so we return to her hut in the Kokari Wilds with Alistair, Wynne, and Shale. Flemeth offers to give us her grimoire without fighting her, if we tell Morrigan we killed her, but we refuse. She transforms into her high dragon form and the fight begins. Despite us being considerably more powerful, Flemeth is still a huge challenge, dealing 50% of Alistair's HP very quickly, and very nearly killing him soon after. Although thanks to Wynne's myriad of healing spells, it's largely a non-issue, so long as we can keep her snorting lyrium. The fight takes a while, but thanks to the sheer tankiness of Alistair, Shale and us, we're able to take enough hits for Wynne to keep us topped up with healing, and able to deal enough hits so that Flemeth was never bothered by Wynne. After retrieving the grimoire from Flemeth's hut, we hand it over to Morrigan. She thanks us and says she'll start studying it right away. After so long has passed, we finally decide to help Levy restore his family's honour. We arrive at the snow-swept ruins of Soldier's Peak, still in fantastic condition, alongside Levy. As we walk through the fortress's portcullis, we witness a ghostly echo of events from the past, of soldiers sent by the king to attack and kill the Grey Wardens in Soldier's Peak, as they wait outside to starve them out. And it appears we aren't the only ones who saw it, as Levy comments on it as well. The skeletons of the king's soldiers and some Grey Wardens rise from the snow to attack us, but we bury them again rather quickly. Entering the fortress, we see another echo, wardens gathered in the room as the warden commander, Sophia Dryden, gives a rallying speech. We progress, and are met by an arcane horror and lesser rage demons. Seemingly a tear in the veil has occurred, that has allowed these demons to appear. After fighting through more skeletons and demons, we see another echo of the Wardens and King Arlen's soldiers locked in combat. A Grey Warden mage called Avernus tears a rift in the Fae to summon demons to assist in the battle, but they turn on him, attacking Grey Warden and soldier indiscriminately.
So much death, suffering, and oh yes, blood. The veil is torn now. Your soul is mine, Avernus.
We then come across Sophia Dryden, or rather, a spirit that has taken control of her corpse, who offers to seal the veil if we destroy whatever in the mage's tower is trapping her here, and letting her go free afterwards. We enter the tower and find a poison on the table. Believing that an out-of-date poison is obviously less poisonous, we drink it, keel over in pain, and unlock the powers of blood abilities. Entering the tower's main room, we meet Avernus, the mage we saw from the Echo, who's working on something, and asks us why we're here. We tell him we intend to take back Soldier's Peak, and he tells us that to do that, we need to prevent the demons from crossing the veil permanently. Which, yeah, obviously. We ask Avernus to answer any of Levy's questions, so that he may get his family honour back, when Avernus reveals that he is in fact the one that sent Levy the summon, informing him of the place. Avernus then tells Levy that Sophia was the greatest of them. It also turns out that Sophia was King Arlen's cousin and was in contention for the crown before it went to Ireland, that even after losing, she continued to push her claim, which landed her in jail for treason. She was set to be executed, but joined the Grey Wardens instead, likely saved through the rite of conscription, like us, and gradually rose to become the Grey Warden commander. Sophia is responsible for reinvigorating the Grey Wardens, as well as its exile from Ferelden. At some point, Arlen had become a tyrant, and some approached Sophia begging her to put an end to his rule, beginning a rebellion. Many Grey Wardens abandoned Sophia, believing they should be neutral in political affairs, which ultimately led to Soldier's Peak being overrun and Sophia's death. Avernus regretfully informs Levi that there is unfortunately no proof of Sophia's heroism. We team up with Avernus to sew up the tear in the veil, and return where Sophia blocks us. After defeating the ghoul, we enter the main hall, where we must fend off demons as Avernus seals the veil. Once the veil is repaired, Avernus asks what we plan to do with him. We allow Avernus to continue inhumane research to assist the Wardens. No more blood magic. Levy approaches, disappointed that he couldn't find anything to repair his family's honour, but tells us that when we return, he'll have a trade set up and have wares to sell. However, we never actually returned to Soldier's Peak after this. Approaching the entrance to the underground city of Orzammar, we find Loghain's soldiers arguing with some dwarven guards, demanding to be let in and have the assembly swear loyalty to Loghain. We then hand the guard our treaty, requesting entrance to discuss with the king. And the guard informs us that Orzammar has no king, and that they are close to an all-out civil war. The guard lets us in, as only the assembly is authorised to address the treaty, much to the soldiers' dismay, who orders the guard to execute us in Loghain's name. We tell the weasel to run back to his pretend king, as the big kids have things to do, as he and his entourage slink away. Orzammar's grand doors open, revealing the Tig's entrance hall, a marvel of stonework and architecture. The guard wasn't lying about the civil unrest, because as soon as we enter the Tig, we witness one of Prince Balin's guards gutting one of Lord Harremont's.
It is the assembly who makes a king, and a king nominates his successor. None of it is carried in the blood.
Whereas now, when someone tries using the assembly to pull a coup, who's to say what my father said in his final hours, when the usurper Harrowmont was the only one by his side?
I'll have you thrown in prison.
You've bitten off more than you can chew.
Handlers, separate these dashers in the diamond corner. Knock out Balin and say your right.
Not speak that way about the man who should be king!
We speak to the guard captain, who reveals that Balin and Harrowmont are the two choices in the assembly to who should become king. Balin Ardukan is the recently deceased king's son, whilst Harrowmont was the king's second, essentially his right hand, and high general, who was the only person around when the king died, and claims he elected him to be the next king. We speak to a young dwarven girl named Dagna, who asks us to send a message to the Major Circle asking to study there. On our way to the assembly in the Diamond Quarter, we're pulled aside by Vartag Gavor, who informs us that he's aware of our treaties with the dwarves, but informs us they only compel the dwarven king to assist the Grey Wardens against the Blight, a king that Orzammar is currently lacking. Vartag adds that Balin may be willing to help us if we assist him in acquiring the throne, but we must first prove that we aren't spies for Harrowmont, by giving some dwarven lords proof that Harrowmont promised two different lords the same portion of land. We tell Vartag that we will think about it as we enter the assembly. Dwarves debate the proceedings of election, as the steward of the assembly calls it into recess. The steward tells us the same thing that Vartag just told us, that without a king, Orzammar is in no position to help us against Blight. We return to Vartag and hand the proof to Lady Dace and Lord Helmy, who both retract their support from Harrowmont. But Lady Dace informs us that she cannot formally change her vote without her father's permission, so we must enter the deep roads to find him. We fight through groups of Darkspawn and Darkstalkers to find Lord Dace and inform him of Harrowmont's misdeeds and convince him to vote for Balin. We return to Orzammar with Lord Dace and meet with Vartag, who brings us to Balin. We speak with the prince, who tells us about what happened with his father, that he became sick with grief after losing two of his sons, and that Harrowmont barred him from seeing him in his final moments. He also pledges to send troops to aid in the war against the Darkspawn if we help him become king. But for now, he is preoccupied with a criminal leader named Jarvia, whom we agree to deal with. On our way to Dusttown, we're ambushed by a group of Harrowmont supporters, where we easily deal with them using my latest strategy. By setting up a paralysis glyph with Win, I can trap enemies into Morrigan's high damage spells like Fireball, or more namely, Inferno. We look around Dusttown for clues about Jarvia, help a castless woman who is abandoned by her family by convincing them to take her back, and speak to a beggar called Nadezda. Nadezda tells us that Carter members have tokens that allow members access to their network, and that only one entrance is open at a time. Upon stumbling into a random dwarven home, we're jumped by Carter members, and after Morrigan scorches them alive, the last remaining member, still burning, hands us his token and tells us how to gain access to the network. We give the doorman our password, but it seems to have changed. What a shame, as we're forced to slay every dwarf who stands between us and Jarvia. Vakata seems to have hired Kinari as extra muscle, but they go down all the same. We come across a dwarf named Lesk, whom we let out of his cell. And after killing maybe about half of Orzamar's population, we finally meet Javia, who promptly disappears. The fight with Javia and her remaining bodyguards is tough, as they quickly put down Wynn, ending the team's sustainability, followed by Shale and then Morrigan. We managed to claw out a victory in the end against Javia and her men. We exit Vakata's base through the back of a worried merchant store, who turns out to be Degna's father. Reminded of our promise, we quickly dart to the Circle Tower to request permission from First Enchanter Irving, who accepts after a little persuasion. Once back at Orzammar, we inform Degna of the Circle's decision and meet with Balin. He tells us that our dealing with Javia will do him some favours in the Assembly, but he needs something big for the final nail in the coffin. Balin tells us of Paragon Brunka, who left Orzammar 2 years ago to seek out something the ancient dwarves left in the Deep Roads centuries ago, and asks us to seek her out, to get her to pledge her loyalty to Balin. Brunka's vote is so valuable because she's a paragon, dwarves who have performed great feats and deemed exceptionally important and regaled as living ancestors. Brunka is the only one in the past 400 years. Just as we're about to head into the Deep Roads, we're cut off by a deeply drunk dwarf looking for a Grey Warden. We tell him that we are she, and he asks us for a favour. He asks to join us in our search for Brunka, who's actually his ex-wife, and in return he'll give us information about what she's looking for, as well as offering to be our guide through the Deep Roads. We reluctantly agree, as he tells us that Brunka's looking for the Anvil of the Void, an ancient dwarven artifact and the key to making golems that was believed to have been lost over a century ago. He tells us that the Anvil was located in Ortan Taig, past Caridin's Cross, and so we head out, with Oghren in tow. Entering Caridin's Cross, Oghren tells us more about its history as a junction connecting many Taigs and Great Taigs throughout the Deep Roads, before we're attacked by mercenaries, presumably hired by Harrowmont. We journey deeper into Caridin's Cross, fighting hordes of Darkspawn all the way to Ortan Taig. Oghren's astounded to be in Ortan Taig, never believing he'd get the chance to see it, and notes that he knows Brunka's made it this far, as she takes chunks of rocks from the wall at regular intervals in known locations, but believes she's moved on from the Taig, since she'd have sentries out by now. In the ruined cities of the Taig, we fight nameless spirits forgotten to time, as well as frenzied golems until we run into Ruck, a dwarf we'd been asked to find by his mother after he'd gone missing. Ruck has evidently gone mad from eating Darkspawn to survive, but a small part of him is still there. We ask him about his mother, but he refuses to talk, believing she'd hate him if she knew that he'd murdered someone before fleeing into the Deep Roads, and makes us promise we won't tell her. We progress through the Taig until we come across one of Brunka's journals, meaning that we're heading in the right direction. Now in the dead trenches, we look down into a chasm and see Darkspawn gathering, marching towards the surface, as well as the Archdemon, which we barely avoid being detected by. Crossing the bridge, we slay waves of Darkspawn with the aid of members of the Legion of the Dead, a branch of the Dwarven military who keep the Darkspawn at bay. Progressing through Balnamar, the true name of the Dead Trenches, we clear even more Darkspawn, as we begin to hear faint mutterings reciting some kind of rhyme.
First day they come and catch everyone. Second day, feed us and eat some for meat. 5th day they return, and it's another girl's turn. 6th day her screams we hear in our dream. 7th day she blew as in her mouth they spew. 8th day we hated as she is violated. 9th day she grins and devours her kin. Now she does feast.
It shall be done.
As she's become the beast.
Following the mutterings leads us to Hespith, who's suffering from darkspawn corruption, but seems to possess just enough of her sanity to speak to us. We offer to help her, but she refuses, claiming that what little is left of her is turning, and talks about what the darkspawn did to her group, mainly Laren.
They come. They vomit. They violate. And they chant. They scream. Oh, how they scream. Then the change comes. All I could do was wish Laren went first. I wished it upon her so that I would be spared.
She says that Brunka is too far gone, and that it's her fault for not being able to stop her, even as her lover, that she is too obsessed with finding the anvil. Hespith runs away, out of sight, and we start to hear her poem again as we kill 2 ogres and take a legionnaire key to open an ominous door. Upon opening the door, we see organic sacks in clusters and a fleshy matter writhing across the walls and floor as we hear Hespith once again, describing what happened to Laren as we see what has become of her. A brood mother, a corrupted darkspawn creation responsible for birthing the darkspawn horrors. Once we put Laren out of her misery, Hespith appears once again, telling us that the broodmothers are why the darkspawn need other races, and that Brunka allowed Hespith and her group to be captured so that she could reach the anvil unimpeded.
The stone has punished me, dream friend. I am dying of something worse than death. Betrayal.
With that, Hespith is never seen again, and we progress to the Anvil of the Void. As we step foot in the Anvil's resting place, we finally meet Brunka, who isn't exactly pleased to see us, and even less pleased to see Ogren alongside us, and asks why we're here, immediately guessing that we've been hired to find her. Brunka admits she has little care for who gets on the throne, and only cares about getting her hands on the Anvil of the Void, sacrificing anything to get to it. When we bring up her sacrifice of everyone in her house, she cuts our conversation short, stating that she'll only help us if we help her get to the anvil, as she walks off to find it. We fight darkspawn, golems, and a spirit apparatus, before coming across Golem Caradin, who is, by admission, the same person as the Paragon of the same name. Shale recognises the name, and Caradin in return recognises Shale, rather fondly it seems. Caradin forged Shale, but also knew it before it was a golem, when it was Shale of House Kadesh. Caradin makes sure we heed his warning, that in order for him to have created the golems, he had to take their life force from somewhere else, from dwarves. It started with volunteers, but ended up with criminals and castless being forced to transform, as well as King Voltor's enemies. Eventually, Caradin was made to become a golem, and only then did he realise what he had done. Caradin has sought a way to destroy the anvil for centuries, but could not, as he had designed it so that no golem could lay hands on it. Brunka rushes in, demanding we keep it so she can create more golems, but we refuse, and side with Caradin. Ogrin tries to reason with us, saying she's confused and delirious, but we convince him that she's beyond saving. Brunka takes out a control rod, assuming control of most of Caradin's golem bodyguards, and beginning battle. Thanks to Shale and my knockdown abilities, Brunka stood no chance. After the fight, we speak to Caradin, who thanks us for our support, but laments that it came at the cost of Brunka's life, and requests to grant us a boon. We offer the boon to Ogren, who asks if he could bring Brunka back as a golem, but Caradin refuses. Ogren then asks him to make a tribute for the Orzammar king, and after some time he presents us with a crown. We fulfill our promise to Caradin, destroying the anvil, as he thanks us, giving a dwarven farewell. I trust Nal Tunsha, and dives into the lava below. We arrive back in Orzammar just in time at the meeting of the Assembly to bestow Caradin's tribute. Oghren announces,
Caradin was trapped in the body of a golem. This Warden granted him the mercy he sought, releasing him and destroying the anvil of the void. Before he died, Caradin forged a crown for Orzammar's next king, chosen by the ancestors themselves.
and we give the crown to Balin. Immediately, Balin calls for Haramont's arrest and prompt execution, to our horror. He notes that anything that undermines his rule only helps the Darkspawn, and that he'll prepare dwarven troops for the surface, as well as asking us to meet him in his quarters. Balin gifts us a maul used by his brother and bids us farewell. Leaving Orzammar finally, Oghren feels dizzy, with no ceiling above him, but steels himself, bidding he won't let us down. Speaking to Shale, it requests we find evidence of who it was before, when it was Shale Kadesh. Shale reveals it believes it recalls where Kadesh Taig is, and wonders if there's any registry or record there. We find the Taig overrun with Darkspawn, much like the rest of the Deep Roads, but more importantly, a list of dwarves who volunteered to become golems to protect Orzammar, and in that list lies Shale Kadesh. Shale remembers Shale, its life before, and tells us it needs some time to reflect on its thoughts, and maybe it will talk to us about it at some point. With our allies gathered, the time has come to orchestrate the Landsmeet with Arl back at Redcliffe.
Denerim is the heart and soul of Ferelden. It was the city of King Calanhad, the birthplace of Andraste. As stubborn as a Mabari, and as good to have on your side. If we defeat Loghain here, the rest of the nation will follow us. By calling the Landsmeet, I've struck the first blow. The advantage, for the moment, is ours. He will have little choice but to show himself, to oppose us directly. He will strike back at us. The only question that remains is how soon.
After arriving in Denerim, Terran Loghain meets with us personally to call Eamon out for calling the Landsmeet. We remind Loghain of his treachery at Ostagar, which he doesn't take kindly to, and he goes on to tell Eamon that he's not fit to advise Ferelden anymore due to his illness, the illness Loghain caused. He then introduces Arl Hal and his plethora of ill-gained titles, who we confront regarding his butchery of Denerim's elven population.
When the animals turn against their masters, it is sometimes necessary to cull the herd.
Loghain claims that now is not the time to be divided, and that we should stand together, but leaves, threatening that should push come to shove, he'll crush us like he did the Orlesian Emperor. Sometime later, Queen Honora's handmaiden arrives, claiming her queen has sent for our assistance, so we hear out the queen's request.
I think her life is in danger. I heard Hal say she would be a greater ally dead than alive, especially if her death could be blamed on Arl Eamon.
Whilst hesitant that this may be some kind of setup, we travel to Arl Hal's estate, but are ambushed in an alleyway by Taliesin of the Antivan Crows, who demands to know where Zevran is, as he appears from thin air. Taliesin offers Zevran the chance to return to the Crows, which he takes, and we're forced to put him down with the rest. We sneak around the side into Arl Hal's estate and put on guard uniforms to blend in. We find Queen Honora locked behind a magically sealed door, so we leave to find the mage. Our stealth plan is cut short when we accidentally stumble across a guard and a servant getting a little frisky, so we're forced to fight the estate's guards on our way to the dungeons. We catch the attention of a guard as he promptly has his neck snapped by the prisoner he had his back turned to. The man exits his cell and thanks us for the distraction, despite the guard being just as open to kill before he'd noticed us, and introduces himself as Warden, Senior Warden of Jeddah, after he recognises Alistair. We ask him how he survived Ostagar, which he reveals that he didn't need to, as he wasn't there, but instead came from Orlais after they received no word from King Cailan. Riordan points us towards the dungeons in our mission to find Hal, and leaves us, but tells us he will find us later. Hal, seemingly aware of our presence, has his guards on alert, ready to attack us as we fight our way through to him. Before engaging in combat with the man responsible for the purge against our people, he taunts us, laughing that Anora has us under her thumb and that Loghain will win this farcical Landsmeet. We find a man in a cell, suffering from lyrium withdrawal, according to Alistair, as he believes we are his little sister, Alfstana. It turns out that he was the Templar that caught Joan outside Redcliffe, but Joan was taken off of him by Loghain's men, and he was taken to Hal's dungeon, and has been there ever since. He gives us a ring to give to Alfstana, and to leave him in his cell. We return to Anora, having killed the mage keeping her locked up, and attempt to escape, only to be intercepted by Sir Cuthrian. We try to tell her that Hal had Anora locked up in his estate, but Anora sells us and Alistair out to save herself, and after getting absolutely stomped, we're imprisoned in Fort Dracon. We awaken in our cell with Alistair and devise a plan. Calling over a guard, we utilise our womanly charm to convince the guard to join us in our cell and disrobe before Alistair and I punch him so hard he melts. Having escaped our cell, we retrieve our gear and slip into some guard uniforms to blend in. We bump into the guard captain, who mistakes us for recruits, and tells us to meet with the rest of our group for inspection. We meet our patrol, get our regulation swords from the quartermaster, and return to the captain for inspection. Passing with flying colours, we head out on patrol, but quickly ditch our group and return to Eamon. Barely able to hold back our anger, we reconcile with Anora, and she tells us she wants to join us, as she informs us about the unrest in the alienage. After so long, we finally returned home to the alienage, battered and burned, seeing the platform we were set to be married, and remembering where our journey started. Elves are gathered around the Tevinter clinic when Shiani arrives, urging people to return to their homes, and accuses the people of the clinic of kidnapping Valendrian and Syrian, our father. We greet Shiani, much to her surprise, as she tells us how bad things had gotten after the wedding. When Shiani tells us that they have our father, we waste no time in making our way in. We feign illness to enter the hospice, where we're promptly attacked by the soldiers within, when they recognise us as a Grey Warden. After killing the guards, we find a key along with a note on the table calling for 8 male and 6 female elves for the next shipment. The Devinters aren't here to cure the elves, they're enslaving them. We escape out the back of the hospice and pass through the apartments after defeating the rest of the Tevinter group. After fighting through even more soldiers, we enter the warehouse where they're storing the elves, only to be met with more soldiers. After convincing the second in command to run while she still can, we fight our way through to her master Caledrius. He tries to weasel out of the ensuing fight by trading a document that proves Loghain permitted Orlesian slavers take elves from the alienage. We prefer not to pardon slavers, however, slaying him and his entourage. Among the freed elves is our father, who we meet back at our house after collecting the document from Caladrius' corpse, where he gifts us our mother's dagger, Fang. With this proof, Eamon believes we have enough to call the Landsmeet, but before we attend, we clean up a couple of loose ends that may garner some support. Anora requested to speak to us, so we do. She requests we support her bid to remain on the throne during the Landsmeet, and in return, she'll support us against Loghain. She also notes we'll be seen more favourably if we support Anora, as the people will believe we are serving Ferelden's interest rather than our own, and we agree to an alliance with Anora on these conditions. We find Banalfstana in the Nord Noble Tavern and hand her Eminrix's ring, the Templar in Hal's dungeon, and tell her of Loghain's misdoings. Whilst in the tavern, we also shut down the Crimson Oar's operations in Denerim on Surgeon Kylon's request. We head to the Royal Palace to attend the Landsmeet, but are stopped from entering the hall by Sir Cothrian, as she talks about everything bad Loghain has done has been our fault, despite her telling us of his flawed and even treacherous plans. We try to make her stand down. She notes a righteousness in our voice she hasn't heard in Loghain for some time, but she refuses, and we're forced to kill her to attend the Landsmeet.
My lords and ladies of the Landsmeet, Tyrn Loghain would have us give up our freedoms, our traditions, out of fear. He placed us on this path, yet we should place our destiny in his hands? Must we sacrifice everything good about our nation to save it?
Loghain heckles Eamon, accusing him of using Alistair as a puppet king. Our arrival ruffles his feathers even more, accusing us of betraying Ferelden by having Alistair being an Orlesian puppet. We try to convince Loghain that the Blight is a threat here, not Orlais, to try and reason with him, securing support from Banalfstana and Arl Wolf. Loghain argues that Ferelden doesn't need the Grey Warden's twin for Blight, and that we're trying to open our borders to an Orlesian invasion by requesting their support. We expose him for selling Ferelden's citizens into slavery, contradicting his facade of fighting for his people's freedom. Loghain admits to selling Denerim elves due to the awful conditions in the alienage that he caused. This outrages Ban Sigurd, gaining his support. Loghain stands by believing he did what's right for Ferelden, and we rebut, asking why he tried to steal his own daughter's throne if that's the case. Loghain accuses us of kidnapping Anora, implying we're using blood magic to detain her, or we may have even killed her already. Anora then appears and denounces her father, claiming he's changed and usurped the throne within hours of his betrayal at Ostagar, and that he locked her up so that she could not spread the truth, claiming she would have died without our help. Loghain, hurt by his daughter's betrayal, turns to the people of the Landsmeet in an attempt to win them over one last time.
To protect you from this.
My lords and ladies, our land has been threatened before. It's been invaded and lost and won times beyond counting. We Fereldans have proven that we will never truly be conquered so long as we are united. We must not let ourselves be divided now. Stand with me, and we shall defeat even the Blight itself.
Southreach stands with the Grey Wardens.
Waking Sea stands with the Grey Warden.
Dragon's Peak supports the Warden. The Western Hills throw their lot in with the Wardens. Make her help us.
I stand by Loghain. We've no hope of victory otherwise.
I stand with the Warden. The Blight is coming. We need the Grey Wardens.
We manage to gain the support of the lords and ladies of the Banorn, and gaining the winning vote in the Landsmeet. But Loghain refuses, and deems everyone a traitor to
When
Ferelden.
his troops flattened your fields and raped your wives. You fought with us once, Eamon. You cared about this land once. Before you got too old and fat, and content to even see what you risk. None of you deserve a say in what happens here. None of you have spilled blood for this land the way I have. How dare you judge me?
We give Loghain one last chance to submit with dignity by offering a single duel. We nominate Alistair as our champion, and he gets stomped. So we sit for the Landsmeet again, nominating Alistair again, and he fails. Again. So in our third lap through the Landsmeet, we fight Loghain ourselves. The fight is a testament to Loghain's skills as a warrior, but he is no match for us. Loghain yields as Riordan arrives and attempts to convince us to put Loghain through the joining. We refuse, preferring to execute Loghain as a traitor to not only the Grey Wardens, but to Ferelden, and give Alistair the honour. Now we must decide who will rule for the future of Ferelden, Alistair or Anora. As much as I like Alistair, he's unproven and admitted to being a second in command rather than a leader, and doesn't even want to be king, so we elect Anora to stay as Queen of Ferelden. Anora meets us back at Arl Eamon's estate, lamenting her father's death, and informs us that Eamon has returned to Redcliffe and she plans to join him there soon, as Ferelden's armies have almost gathered there in full, and tells us to meet them there when we're ready. The Darkspawn have gone on the offensive, attacking Redcliffe before we could even arrive. Thankfully, Eamon had already evacuated everyone into the castle, and there was no threat of civilians being harmed. We clear out Redcliffe, as well as the castle courtyard, to make our way inside and meet with Anora and Eamon, alongside Tegan and Riordan. Riordan tells us they believe the Darkspawn were preparing to attack Redcliffe, but it turns out they are instead marching on Denerim, and are being headed by the Archdemon. Eamon plans to march on Denerim by the morn of tomorrow, but we won't make it to Denerim in time to prevent an attack, instead going on the offensive. Riordan tells us and Alistair to meet him in his room later, to fill us in on information regarding the Darkspawn and Wardens. Eamon tells everyone to retire for the evening, so we meet with Riordan to hear his pivotal information.
The Archdemon may be slain, as any other Darkspawn, but should any other than a Grey Warden do the slaying, it will not be enough. The essence of the beast will pass through the taint to the nearest Darkspawn and will be reborn anew in that body. The dragon is thus all but immortal. But if the Archdemon is slain by a Grey Warden, its essence travels into the Grey Warden instead. A Darkspawn is an empty, soulless vessel, but a Grey Warden is not. The essence of the Archdemon is destroyed, and so is the Grey Warden.
We return to our room after learning of our potential fate, only to be met with Morrigan, who offers us a way to save both Alistair and ourselves. For this dark ritual, Morrigan must bear a child with Alistair, who will bear the Darkspawn taint, and when we kill the Archdragon, its soul will seek out the child instead. Despite the glaring issues with Morrigan raising a baby old god by herself, we talk with Alistair and convince him to perform Morrigan's ritual. The next morning, our army marches to Denerim, where we see the Darkspawn horde amassed outside the city walls, as Anora gives a speech.
Before us stands the might of the Darkspawn horde. Gaze upon them now, but fear them not. The woman you see beside me is an elf, raised to the ranks of the Grey Wardens, and never a more glorious Grey Warden has there been. She has survived despite the odds, and without her, none of us would be here. Today, we save Denerim. Today, we avenge the death of my husband, your King Caelan. But most of all, today, we show the Grey Wardens that
We fight the initial dregs of the Horde once inside the city alongside our entire group: Alistair, Morrigan, Wynne, Sten, Shale, Ogren and Hog, all fighting to the last. Riordan finds us and we discuss a plan. We take a small team into the city, leaving the rest behind to buy us time, and Riordan goes alone to prevent the Archdemon from reading where we are and make our way to the top of Fort Dracon to fight it there. We bring our tried and true team: Alistair, Morrigan and Wynne. Sten elects himself to lead the rest of our party as they say goodbye.
Well, this is it, Warden. When from the blood of battle the stone is fed, let the heroes prevail and the blighters lie dead. As one of the blighters, I sodding salute you. Let's show them our hearts, and then show them theirs.
So the Archdemon is next, is it? Part of me is glad that it has decided to leave me here at the gate, but the other part is apprehensive. It's not that I'm worried about it perishing necessarily. Let's face it, I will be alive long after it has turned to dust anyhow. Still, things have been so much more interesting since it activated me. Shame to end that, really. Of course it will. Well then, I suppose this is it. Have fun storming the castle.
Are you ready? We have reached the battlefield at last. I have done nothing. You have carried us this far. Do not doubt that.
So we head into the city together. As it should be. Once this is done, no matter how it turns out, I will be gone. You are aware of this, yes? You are most welcome. It is, I think, the very least I could offer you. Let us go, and see this finally done. The Archdemon awaits.
So, this could be it. Soon this will be finished. One way or another. And I love you. Always.
We first head to the alienage to kill one of the Hurlock generals and help drive off the Darkspawn trying to break in. Once successful, we head to the Denerim markets to do the same there. On our way to the Palace District, we take control of Sten as a group of Darkspawn stragglers breaks through the defences. Once Sten and the rest have cleared the Darkspawn, he sends word via messenger that the gates are secured. Afterwards, we cut to Riordan's plan. Riordan gave his life to give us a chance at defeating the Archdemon, and for that, he's a hero. But now that means Alistair or our lives are forfeit if Morrigan's dark ritual fails. We fight our way through the Palace District and into Fort Dracon, slaying the full catalogue of Darkspawn creatures, and just before the stairs to the second floor, we find Sandal, alone, and surrounded by tens of Darkspawn corpses. The second and third floors are no challenge for us, as we climb to the top of Fort Dracon and bear witness to the Archdemon as it tears through our forces. The dragon's a tough fight, even with Morrigan's double tornado strategy. But, with the assistance of our armies, the Dalish elves of the Brazilian forest, the dwarves of Orzammar, the humans of Redcliffe, and the mages of the Mage's Circle, we pull out a hard-fought victory, and this hard-ass finishing blow. And then it was over.
And then it was over. With the Archdemon dead, the Darkspawn horde quickly crumbled. Most fled back into the deep roads. They would remain a threat in the years to come. But the Blight had been ended before it had truly begun. Ferelden had been saved, and the entire kingdom rose up to joyously greet its queen. The Grey Warden stood redeemed, and a new age had begun. But at what cost?
Anora dubs us the hero of Ferelden, and bestows us a boon of our choosing. We request our people, the City Elves, be treated as equals, and elect Shiani to be the ban of the alienage. Anora also bestows the title of Arl of Amaranthine to the Grey Wardens, previously held by Arl Howe. She then turns to us, asking what we plan to do, which we return, telling her we plan to continue our fight against the Darkspawn, as we go off to speak with our compatriots. Alistair informs us the Grey Wardens from Orlais have been inquiring how we both managed to survive, and he intends to keep them guessing. He also wonders where Morrigan's gone, worrying if the Dark Ritual will have its consequences. Shael plans to return to Orzammar to help the dwarves fight off the Darkspawn in the Deep Roads. Maybe. Our father stands in awe that we managed to survive slaying the Archdemon, as well as the fact that we're deemed a hero and managed to give our people a voice. Ogren's complimenting surface drinks, and mentions he's been offered a spot in Denerim's military, but he's not sure if he'll stick. Win hopes we're proud of our title, that we've earned it, and that she's been offered the role of First Enchanter, but she's turned it down, and instead is part of Denerim's royal court, being the first mage to do so in some time. Sten compares Kinare custom and culture to that of Ferelden's, and notes that a living Kunoran Vel would be proud, and that we deserve to have a little pride. Sten then announces his return to his homeland, a trip we offered to accompany him on, if only for a short time. Finally, we leave the hall to face the crowds awaiting their hero. Moving on to Dragon Age's DLCs, I decided to also include A Tale of Orzammar, which is technically a mod for Origins, but it was made in an official collaboration between PC Gamer Magazine and BioWare, and it's included in the GOG version of the game, so I played it. I forgot to record the first playthrough of A Tale of Orzammar, so we're following Golgorog II, son of Golgorog, as he meets with a mysterious dwarven noble to discuss an expedition into the Deep Roads, to uncover an ancient artifact so that he can gain favour with one of the major noble families. The noble tells us to recruit someone to bring with us, and we'll head into the Deep Roads, so we convince a very drunken Orson Haver to join us. Arriving in the ruined Tig, we fight through darkspawn creatures to find the artifact, and find an ancient tome discussing some of the creator's favourite beginnings. Very strange. Continuing on, we find a house lost to time with golems still defending something. This must be where the artifact is. After defeating the golem, the noble who hired us appears, revealing himself to be Balin, and that there's no artifact here, but he's going to plant one here for his brother to find. He then attacks us, claiming nobody will miss a castless if they disappear, but thankfully Balin's a terrible fighter and loses. Balin gives up and attempts to cut a deal with us, which we refuse and are stabbed in the back by Orson and are left in the Deep Roads to be forgotten. Jerick Dace, cousin of Anwar Dace, has requested our help on an expedition into Amgarak Tig to salvage anything he can find and look for his brother, Rogan. Almost immediately, we find a group of dead dwarves at the entrance to Amgarak as we are attacked by Darkspawn. We find an inactive golem that's been modified from Caridon's Templar, as Dace theorises if the dwarves of Amgarak found a way to make more golems without the Anvil of the Void. We find its control rod guarded by some shrieks, and use it to add a powerful tool to our party. Moving through the caverns, we find a congregation of Fade monsters led by an arcane horror. After defeating the demons, we find the long-lost doors to Amgarak Tig, and upon entry we are blocked in by a magical barrier. Walking down the stairs, we catch a glimpse of a strange creature scurrying off into another room, but when we try to follow it, it's already gone, and we're instead ambushed by golems. Some strange chests stop the room, but we can't touch them. Our hands phase right through. We find Brogan as well, glowing with the same spectral blue hue as the chests. Jerick tries to reach out to his brother, but receives no response, and it appears Brogan has already begun to lose his mind. We find a Lyrium well. Activating the switch transports us to a realm within the Fade, and we can now touch the blue chests we couldn't before. We fight our way back to Brogan, who implores that Jerick leave and that he has to hide. Brogan tells us that he's watched his entire party die whilst he was in the Fade, that they were harvested. He asks us to find Darian, the dwarf who led his expedition, and he joins the party. We progress through the blue realm of the Fade, fighting off more demons until we find a switch returning us to the normal realm, and another that transports us to the purple realm. Moving through this purple realm, we find Darian's journal upon exiting. Darian's journal gives us a name to the creature scurrying around Amgarak, the Harvester, as well as his plan to destroy Amgarak and all it holds by heading to the Forge. After spending longer than I'd like to admit on the cyan, magenta, yellow and white puzzle, we enter the red realm and journey through the rest of Amgarak until we come face to face with the Harvester. The Harvester is a tanky boss, meant to distract you from its skeleton and spectral minions. However, they can be killed immediately whilst transitioning between the Fade and the real world. After defeating its fat body, the Harvester leapt off into its scurrying form, and its AI broke, I think. It refused to fight back or move in this form, and minions were still spawned to attack me, so I don't know. As soon as the killing blow is dealt, Amgarak begins to collapse, and our golem is crushed by the rubble. Jerick rages at the destruction of the Tig, but Brogan convinces him it's for the best as we escape. With the destruction of Amgarak Tig, their research becomes a secret once more, as everything within is destroyed. Well, almost everything. One year after the defeat of the Archdemon and the end of the Fifth Blight, we've returned to Flemeth's hut deep in the Kokari Wilds with Hogg in search of Morrigan after reports of someone matching her description have come from the area. Entering the hut, a Dalish elf, Ariane, attempts to ambush us and demands we call off Hogg. Eventually, she relinquishes her hostility and reveals she was looking for Flemeth, whom we admit to killing, as she tells us not to be so sure, to find out where to find Morrigan. Morrigan has apparently been causing trouble for Ariane's clan, having stolen an ancient tome held by the clan since the days of Arlafan. She's surprised to find out that we're friends with Morrigan. Well, we'd consider ourselves to be friends with Morrigan, and proposes we travel together to find her to try and end things peacefully. The book stolen revolved around an Alluvian, a word that has lost its meaning to time, save for maybe Morrigan. Ariane points towards the Circle Tower as our first stop, as that's where her clan retrieved the book from, and many artifacts apparently remained there. At the tower, we are granted by Hadley, who is standing in as leader of the Templars whilst Knight Commander Gregor is in Denerim, and he grants us access to the tower's library. In the library, we search for any books that may have information about the Alluvian, which leads us to a catalogue of elven relics. But the relics' names are in the long-lost elven language, so we search for a book to help us translate elven, and return to the book. Not too long after we find a chapter on the Alluvian, a wailing mage by the name of Finn tries to scold us for mishandling the book, but quickly realises that if he picks a fight, he isn't gonna win it. Finn notices that we're looking for the Alluvian, and gives us a brief lesson. Ariane then tells us about another Dalish clan who lost 2 members after they found an Alluvian that was tainted by the Darkspawn, and was subsequently destroyed. Finn excitedly begins thinking of a plan to connect the Alluvians together, and urges us to head to the repository. We head to get the key off of Hadley, as we find Sandal here as well, left in the Circle's care whilst Bodan trades in Redcliffe. Hadley refuses to let us into the repository, since the sentinels they have are acting up, but when we offer to sort out the issue for him, he lets us in. We patrol the basement, defeating any sentinels we come across, which reveals that a tear in the veil has caused the automatons to act up. Having repaired the breach, we find the statue Finn mentioned to Hadley, which houses
I am the spirit of Eleni Zenobia, once consort and...
Advisor to Archon Valerius, blah blah, fall of the house.
Finn asks the statue if the broken Alluvian could be used to find the others, which it reveals.
Scry, the broken glass dagger shard will be your key.
With Finn in tow, we head to the Brazilian forest to find the tainted Alluvian, where we find many elves who have become infected whilst attempting to break the mirror. Having grabbed a shard of the mirror, we head to Kadesh Taig in search of the lights of Arlafan. Once at Kadesh Taig, Finn finds that the elves would magically hide significant relics from unworthy eyes, so they are likely hidden somewhere in the ruins. He then casts a spell using some of Ariane's blood that will reveal any relics to us. The Taig is still teeming with Darkspawn, despite the extermination we led with Shale. But they aren't the only enemies we find here, as each of the lights of Arlafan has a defense mechanism, releasing ancient elven spirits to attack us. After grabbing the last light of Arlafan, Finn begins the scrying ritual to find an unbroken Alluvian, during which we are attacked by some shades. Finn discovers an Alluvian in the Dragonbone Wastes. Trekking through the wastes, we're attacked by dragons and cultists, but most dangerous is the Varitel, that attacks us as we near the Alluvian. The beast of nature isn't too tough, despite having corrosive spit and strong area of effect attacks. Although, once we do enough damage, it leaps into the air as dragons arrive to attack us before it returns to the fight. Once defeated, we enter the tower it was guarding, where we find the Alluvian, and more importantly, Morrigan.
Good this time. I assume you know what this is. I have gone to great lengths to find and activate this portal. Give me reason and I use it, and you will not be able to follow. I did not think you had. Tell me, why did you come? So you chase me all this way to offer help? I will never understand you, and you will never understand me. I would not even know where to begin explaining. My plan is to leave and prepare the child for what is to come. Such preparation requires time and power. I must have both if I am to be successful. More than this, I dare not say, even to you. He is safe and beyond your reach. All you need to know is that the child is an innocent. He knows nothing of the destiny that lies before him. Then allow me to provide you a warning. 'Tis Flemeth you should beware of. not me. Hunt her if you hunt anyone. My mother has tricked her way past death and more. She is no more finished than I am. I thought I knew what Flemeth planned. I thought what she craved was immortality, and yet I was wrong. So very wrong. She is no blood mage, no abomination. She is not even truly human. The ritual was but a means to an end, a herald for what is to come. Change is coming to the world. Many fear change, and will fight it with every fiber of their being. But sometimes, change is what they need most. Sometimes, change is what sets them free. What I want is unimportant now. I cannot tarry longer. The time has come for me to go. Not if you are fortunate. There is one last thing I must tell you. If you will allow me. I left you a gift. The Dalish book is there, and something you will find of great interest. Goodbye, my friend.
In an alternate history where Cynthia Tabris died during the Battle of Ostagar, we enter as a Darkspawn Vanguard with a special connection to the Archdemon during the Battle of Denerim. Our task, as with all Darkspawn, is to kill all that lives within Denerim's walls and to protect the Archdemon. With the help of Darkspawn we recruit along the way, we slaughter our way through the capital, starting with the city gates where we kill Arl Renton Hell, who still lives in this timeline. In the market district, we slaughter numerous civilians as we bait out Bantegan and Sir Laudry to free the Genlock sappers required to destroy the gate to the alienage. Upon its recruitment, a horde of drunks led by Ogren attack, but fall quicker than if they had just kept drinking. And upon the destruction of the gate, Templars led by Senior Enchanter Wynne tried to fend us off, but ultimately failed to halt our march. In the alienage, we are specifically instructed by the Archdemon to burn down the Venadol. Amongst the elves is the failed assassin, Severin, who dies like the rest. After Riordan fails to kill the Archdemon, we fight through the palace district of Fort Dracon. The palace district is swarming with dwarves, golems, and even the Qunari, Sten. After squashing the Qunari, we arrive atop Fort Dracon and are met with the Orlesian bard Leliana, the witch Morrigan, the king of Ferelden and last of the Grey Wardens, Alistair, and his mutt, Barkspawn. After a hard-fought battle, we slay the short-ruled king and his party as the Archdemon flies off to lay waste to Ferelden. Leliana, the Orlesian bard, spins us a story of espionage, subterfuge and betrayal that happened prior to the Fifth Blight. If you're new to Dragon Age like I am, you might be asking who Leliana is. Well, if you cast your mind all the way back to about here, you may remember when I recruited Sten. Well, as it turns out, in the Chantry Hall where we convinced the Reverend Mother was Leliana, waiting to be recruited, but unfortunately perished alongside everyone else in Lothering when the Darkspawn attacked. Or not, apparently, since she seems alive and well enough to be able to tell us this tale. Barely being able to stomach her unapologetic Frenchness, we're introduced to our party, Sketch, Tug, and Marjolaine, in the middle of a mission in Denerim. Marjolaine splits off as Tug reveals their targets. Leliana trades around a few market stalls' inventory so that you all accuse each other of theft. Not a chance they get suspicious. Then they humble Ban Perrin by knocking him and his elite guard unconscious and stealing a very personal item. On their way to their last mark, they find the guard captain who'd been knocked out by Marjolaine and fob the codpiece off on him. Banging on a door is Jovi Maris, whom they kill, completing their last mark. Afterwards, Leliana signals for Marjolaine, who takes the crew to their next job at the Arl of Denerim's estate. She tells Leliana that the job is to plant some embarrassing documents whilst disguising it as a burglary to make it seem the documents were there all along. The party sneaks around the estate, effortlessly avoiding the patrolling guards, leaving no evidence of their presence, and climb through a window. The party sows chaos through the estate as Leliana glimpses Marjolaine seducing the guard commander, allowing her to enter the master bedroom and plant the evidence. Distrustfully, Leliana examines the evidence and sees Orlesian seals on the documents and confronts Marjolaine about it when she enters the room, but she brushes it off. Upon returning to their hideout, Leliana speaks with Marjolaine, who scolds her for questioning her about the papers. Leliana, however, persists, worried that the documents she delivered were military documents, since she would have committed treason if they were. Marjolaine tries to derail the conversation, changing the subject a handful of times to belittle Leliana's worries, but she persists, causing Marjolaine to acquiesce and retrieve the documents. The following night, they return to an empty estate, but as soon as Leliana retrieves the documents, the alarm sounds, and guards come flooding in. Marjolaine splits from Leliana's group as they fight through the estate to escape, and find her outside in the garden, but after speaking to her, she lodges a knife into Leliana's side as guards surround Tug and Sketch. Marjolaine sold them out, as the last thing she sees before passing out is Commander Harwin taunting her. She awakens in the Denerim dungeons to a voice speaking to her from the great above, who offers Leliana words of encouragement and a means of escape before disappearing. Leliana escapes her cell, fights her way through the dungeons and finds Sketch being attacked by guards. After killing the guards, Sketch and another prisoner, Silas, join Leliana's escape attempt. Soon after, they also find Tug on a torture rack, but he had already passed on. With vengeance fueling them, they fight their way through the last of the guards and escape. Leliana wakes up in a chantry building, dazed and confused. She holds her sister at knife point until the revered mother Dorothea de-escalates the situation and explains that she's the one who gave Leliana the push to escape. Dorothea also reveals that the documents Marjolaine had her plant were in fact stolen from her by Marjolaine. Leliana agrees to retrieve Dorothea's papers in order to get her own revenge against Marjolaine, but Dorothea advises against her revenge, worried that it will not be enough for her after everything she's suffered. Leliana, Sketch, and Silas land their boat near where Harwin and Marjolaine plan to make their escape as they taunt them from afar. The party fights through Harwin's troops, killing even Brontos and dragons to exact their revenge. After defeating the commander, Silas throws him off the cliff he was hiding on, as Leliana approaches Marjolaine. Once again, Marjolaine tries to turn the fault onto Leliana, claiming she's dangerous, and excuses her betrayal by claiming Leliana would betray her if she didn't do it first.
That moment I keep, because even now, I don't know what ending serves best. But being able to choose, that is the truth of this story. The rest, it changes with the audience. All things change when they find purpose.
In all honesty, besides Witch Hunt, these DLC packs were a miss for me. But that may be because Witch Hunt was the only one that had things that appealed to me. Golems of Amgarek failed to appeal to me, as I found the story and characters lackluster, and whilst the boss was interesting, it wasn't enough to save it. I'm sure for fans of Leliana, Leliana's song was great, but from the perspective of a player who failed to encounter her, I was half as invested as I could have been, plus the horrible French accents. I think Darkspawn Chronicles was easily the worst, since its main focus was combat, which is my least favourite thing about Origins. And I felt the alternate history idea did a poor job of painting Ferelden's fail as Alistair's fault, since Alistair doesn't fail any of the main quests, nor does he have any grave consequences that aren't possible for the Warden to do instead. The only notable difference is the Darkspawn has a super cool Hurlock Vanguard that is also friends with the Archdemon and it wins them the war. Darkspawn Chronicles makes it feel like the only reason either side won was because of one person who was super special, and that only the Battle of Denerim mattered in the end. Witch Hunt, however, was great. A nice finale to the main game story, interesting spins on combat, and Arianne and Finn were great characters to bring along for the ride. The final boss was a bit boring, but I'm not going to hold it against it since all of Dragon Age Origins bosses felt that way, and the final part with Morrigan was a great way to finish her arc with the Warden. But, if we want to continue talking about good DLC, then let's move on to Dragon Age. Awakening opens with Seneschal Varel, recounting the events that succeeded the Fifth Blight and the Battle of Denerim, how the Darkspawn fled north from Denerim, and ended up splitting into two warring factions that are both terrorising the people of Amaranthine. As part of our new responsibilities as Warden Commander, we've come to Vigil's Keep, the Grey Warden's new base of operations, to begin rebuilding the Order, but we quickly know that something is terribly wrong before Darkspawn chase a Grey Warden down the road towards us. Once the genlocks have been dealt with, the Warden fills us in on what happened at the Keep, and runs off to grab the attention of a nearby patrol for help. Alongside our escort, Myri, we rush in, slaying all the Darkspawn present in the courtyard before entering the Keep. After being ambushed by some shrieks, we encounter Anders, an apostate mage, making a lovely Darkspawn roast. He tries a little bit of denial, and flirting, to skirt around his apostate position, but it matters not to me, as long as he helps us fight off the Darkspawn, which he agrees to. The lever to the inner gate is blocked, so we travel around the Keep's Barbican to access it. Upon opening the gate, Darkspawn come pouring out and are subsequently liquefied by a miniature nuke set off by a crazed dwarf. Passing the gate and deeper into the Keep, an equally crazy but much more familiar dwarf is found slaying Darkspawn. We help Ogren fend off the horde that's surrounding him, and whilst as crass as ever, we let him tag along since every arm is needed to help save the Keep. Myri finds someone she recognises soon after, Rowland, but it's too late for him, as the taint has already started to afflict him, and he dies. We press on through Vigil's Keep until we step atop its inner wall to find a talking Hurlock dubbed the Withered that has Seneschal Varel hostage. We make quick work of the Withered and his troop, saving Varel's life, as soldiers march on the Keep. As they draw near, we realise that the soldiers are from Denerim and are escorting Queen Honora. Varel fills Honora in on the assault on Vigil's Keep, as one of her escort recognises Anders as an apostate and is hell-bent on taking him in for execution. We save the mage by calling the rite of conscription, forcing him into the ranks of the Grey Wardens, like Duncan had once done for us. Before Honora leaves, Varel formally introduces himself and explains his role as Seneschal, to assist our ruling of Amaranthine. Once inside, we commence the joining as Ogren and Anders pass, whilst Myri perishes. After the joining, we're stopped by a guard and told of a thief held in the dungeons who managed to fight off 4 wardens by himself before he went down. The thief turns out to be the son of Rendenhau, Nathaniel, who came to Vigil's Keep initially to kill us, but changed his mind. However, he seems to have little knowledge to the extent of his father's treachery, or at least he doesn't seem to care, and loathes us for bringing it to light and condemning the rest of his family. After speaking to Nathaniel, we decide to induct him into the Grey Wardens, since we need all the help we can get, and despite his father just one more time. This shocks everyone, even the cell door, who's so surprised it closes itself. After Nathaniel's joining, Varel calls for an assembly of the bands of Amaranthine to swear loyalty to us and express their troubles. At the ceremony, we mingle with the nobles, but most importantly Sir Tamra, who informs us that she suspects there's a coalition formed by some of the nobles to kill us as revenge for preventing their climb to power, despite saving Ferelden. After the nobles clear out, another guard informs us that there are likely still Darkspawn within the Keep's walls and the caved-in cellars as a result of a tactical nuke from earlier. We head in to investigate the area, and find an injured Mabari hound holding a note written by a woman named Adria, who is stuck deeper in the cellar. Nathaniel recognises the name Adria as one of Vigil's Keep's handmaidens who took care of him when he was younger, and implores we save her. Delving deeper, we find that there are in fact pockets of surviving Darkspawn, but they've also corrupted most of the people who are trapped with them. Hidden in a cellar, we find the Howl's ancestral bow passed down through the generations, and give it to Nathaniel. Deeper in, we find some survivors, as well as Adria, but unfortunately she'd already been corrupted as she turns to attack us. After putting Adria down, we find a tunnel entrance that connects Vigil's Keep to the deep roads, so we send a team to explore the cave system and find a single point that connects the deep roads to all the tunnels surrounding Vigil's Keep to cause a cave-in. Before we leave for Amaranthine, we speak to Voldrick, the stonemason responsible for repairing the keep's walls, but he proposes we upgrade it beyond the human standards and create walls strong enough to survive a Darkspawn siege. A tempting proposition, but one that will have to wait until we're richer. Upon entering Amaranthine, we find Wynne outside the Chantry building, and she has a favour to ask of us. Ines, a fellow member of the Circle, has been impossible to reach since she left to study the Wendingwood, so Wynne asks if we could find her and inform her of the Circle's upcoming meeting. Within the Wendingwood, we're ambushed by a whole gang of bandits and scavengers. Moving through the woods, we find crates and caravans ablaze, as well as distressed Sylvans that attack us. Crossing a bridge to move deeper into the woods, one of the scavengers barges past us, terrified of something as the source of his fear appears on a ledge above us. A Dalish mage demands to know if we work for the humans in the woods, but upon hearing we are Grey Wardens, moves us along to go and fight the Darkspawn that are in the area. We investigate the area past the elf and find a human in the early stages of corruption, who informs us that him and his team were sent to drive away the Dalish that lived in the Wendingwood, but the Darkspawn intercepted them, killed them all, and, according to him, took their weapons and planted them at the camp before taking away all the elves. With the revelation that the elf we met had been deceived by the Darkspawn, we seek her out. We lose her once when she summons 2 Sylvans and a wolf pack to attack us, but we find her once again at her clan's now empty camp. We tell her what we know, as she realises that in her rage she ignored the obvious signs. We also hand her a necklace we found on a herlog that belonged to her sister. We offer to help her save her sister. Though hesitant, she agrees to the help and introduces herself as Velana. She points us towards the abandoned mine when we mention that the Darkspawn reside in the underground, in tunnel systems, as she joins our party, replacing Ogre. Upon entering the mines, a considerably more evolved Darkspawn walks overhead and knocks us out with a glyph spell. We awaken to him looking over us as he claims he has healed us and wishes not to be our enemy, but he puts us to sleep again. We awaken again, stripped of our equipment, but not our dignity like last time, and are met by Velana's sister, Serane, who is in the early stages of corruption and seems to be working with the Darkspawn. Serane claims that she doesn't want us to get hurt and urges us to escape as she hands us a key and leaves. As we fight through the mines, we find that whoever has evolved the Darkspawn has been experimenting on the people of Amaranthine, as we find experimental subjects who have pilfered our party's gear, first Velana's, then Nathaniel's, Anders, and then our own. As it also turns out, he has a small army of dragonlings amongst his Darkspawn's ranks. As we near the exit of the mines, the Darkspawn sicks his 2 dragons on us as I tried out my brand new technique, Tornado Spam. With Anders and Velana in the party, and both of them knowing the tornado spells, we can use Inferno, Blizzard, Tempest and Deathcloud in an area, whilst using our Taunt ability to drag enemies towards us, and then Warcry to knock them down, allowing us to rack up some major damage. After defeating the dragons, the Darkspawn flee, as Velana demands to join the Grey Wardens to help track her sister. Before leaving for Vigil's Keep, we find Ines studying the plant life in the woods, and tell her that Wynne requires her presence, and after collecting some samples from around the Wending Woods, she, reluctantly, returns to Amaranthine. Back at the keep, Mavelise informs us that the tunnels underneath Vigil's Keep have been opened for us, to find and collapse their connection to the deep roads. We fight through the dwarven ruins, that the Darkspawn were holed up in, and find an ancient barrier door mechanism that will effortlessly keep the Darkspawn at bay and keep Vigil's Keep safe. After we complete Velana's joining, we head to the Black Marsh in search of Kristoff, a fellow Grey Warden who left the night before the assault on Vigil's Keep. We fight through what are referred to as marsh wolves that appear to have been tainted by the Darkspawn, as well as werewolves suffering the same affliction. Here, we also encounter the children for the first time, insectoid-esque Darkspawn that sprout from cocoons. Just past these cocoons, however, we find Kristoff's body laying and decaying, as we are approached by another sentient Darkspawn called the First, who reveals that Kristoff was lured into the Black Marsh and killed to in turn lure us into the Black Marsh to be killed, in a plan devised by the Mother, as he drags us into the Fade. The First's plan didn't go as he thought, however, as his troops and he were used as disposable bait by the Mother and were dragged into the Fade as well. The First flees, and we fight through the powerful demons to make our way to the village. Upon entry, we find a congregation outside a mansion headed by Justice, a spirit who speaks out against the Baroness, a powerful witch who keeps the people of the village trapped in the Fade against their will. We agree to help, and storm the gate to see the Baroness guarded by 2 ash wraiths. As Justice claims that her reign is over, who else but the First appears by her side and claims that once he's done with us, he'll set his sights on the Mother. After defeating the First, he begs the Baroness to send him across the Veil, but once again the First is betrayed, as the Baroness uses his life force to send everyone back. Back in Phaedus, Kristoff's corpse rises, possessed by the spirit of justice, and claims that the Baroness has escaped the fate as well. We navigate the Black Marsh again, defeating demons and closing Fade portals as we approach the Baroness's estate as she transforms into a massive Fade abomination. After a battle made short by tornado spam, Justice tells us that whilst all the spirits that the Baroness had held hostage are now free, he is stuck in Kristoff's body as he is flooded by his memories. At a loss, Justice asks us what he should do next, and settles on joining our cause to defeat the Darkspawn and avenge Kristoff. As we leave the Black Marsh, we are shown the Mother as another of the sentient Darkspawn informs her of the First's death and our survival. This revelation sends the Mother into hysteria, mourning the First's death despite her own betrayal. She claims she wanted him to find peace and the song that has been lost to the Darkspawn, even to the Mother. We descend into a fissure which houses an entrance to Calhirol Tig to find a member of the Lost Legion being dragged off by some Darkspawn as she breaks free and we come to her aid. She explains that she suspects that the Darkspawn are holed up within the Tig, breeding an army since she saw them kidnapping all the female members of the Legion. With Sigrun in tow, we head into Calhirol to eradicate the Darkspawn nest. Mere steps into the Tig, Sigrun finds a member of her Legion, Juka, and with his dying words, warns Sigrun about the Broodmothers, as well as a new type of Darkspawn creature, the same creatures we encountered in the Black Marsh, the Children. Fighting through the Darkspawn's own legions, we make it into the inner walls of Calhirol, just outside the fortress itself, as Sigrun explains how the Darkspawn ambushed the Legion as they assaulted the fortress by using its defences against them, and proposes we try to find a hidden side entrance rather than charging through the main door. Hidden within some wall decoration lies a switch, revealing a secret entrance into the main hall. Cleaving through, we encounter echoes of the dwarves who once resided here as their commander issues a rallying cry before taking the fight to the Darkspawn, and in the trading quarter, Anders spots processed lyrium, commenting on the Chantry's fierce monopoly of the substance, as well as reflecting on his own future. Deeper in the trading quarter, we encounter a nest full of the Darkspawn children Juka warned us about. And in the lower reaches of Calhirol, we find a sentient Darkspawn who refers to himself as the Lost, as he taunts another, claiming that the Architect is a coward for not facing him himself. The Lost turns his attention to us, and attacks, losing the resulting fight. Just beyond his corpse is a congregation of Broodmothers in a pit below a lyrium core, which we drop on them, clearing Calhirol of its infestation. The news of 2 separate, but equally dangerous Darkspawn factions troubles Sigrun, but only briefly as she notes that she must return to the Deep Roads to continue hunting Darkspawn. Instead, we offer her to become a Grey Warden, an offer she is at first hesitant to take up, but the prospect of being an even more effective Darkspawn killing machine sells Sigrun on the idea, as she takes us up on our offer and joins our mission. Once again, we are shown the Mother, thrown into another fit of hysteria after learning of our victory at Calhirol, and rages at the Father for taking the calm away from her and for standing against her and her army. Back at Vigil's Keep, we hold a council once again to the Arls and Arlesses of Amaranthine, when a young woman barges through the main doors to warn us that an army of Darkspawn has begun to lay siege to the city. With only enough time to get a small group into Amaranthine to fight off the invasion, we gear up alongside Anders, Nathaniel and Valana and march to the city. However, we arrive to the city already overrun. As we clear the farms on the outer walls, Aiden speaks with us and claims that the city has already fallen, with at least a quarter of its residents already dead. As we speak, one of the Architect's sentient Darkspawn warns us of an attack on Vigil's Keep by the Mother and implores we return to defend it, and then to take the fight to her in her lair. Garavel reluctantly agrees, and opts to burn down the city to kill all the Darkspawn inside, dooming the survivors within, in order to save the Keep. We refuse this proposition, confident that the Keep will survive thanks to the improvements we've made, as well as the skill of Ogryn, Justice and Sigrun to hold the fort. We storm the city to drive out the Darkspawn's leadership, and after clearing the enemies in the city streets, we take refuge in the Chantry to resupply. Once restocked, we are almost wiped out by a strong troop of children, but manage to survive and seek out the generals hiding in the Crown and Lion, Smuggler's Cove, and outside the city walls, guarded by an armoured ogre. With their leadership dismantled, the Darkspawn retreat as Garavel informs us of the Mother's location in the Dragonbone Wastes. We fight through the Mother's forces, as well as a high dragon that calls the Wastes its home, and find an entrance to the Deep Roads. Serani reveals herself to Velana, and leaves her once again after committing herself to helping the Architect uplift and protect the Darkspawn, to Velana's dismay. Deeper in, the Architect also reveals himself in an attempt to rectify our misunderstandings. The assault on Vigil's Keep from the beginning of Awakening was supposed to be a request for help, but resulted in the Grey Wardens attacking the Withered and the subsequent slaughter. And him imprisoning us was an attempt to talk without violence, which doesn't explain why he set his dragons on us as we went to leave, but you know, finer details. He then asks for us to finally hear him out. The Architect reveals that the Darkspawn are essentially cursed to start the Blight by seeking out the old gods, like the Archdemon during the Fifth Blight. He seeks to break this cycle, to free them from their nature, as every Blight is a massacre to them, and to gain freedom they lack. He also claims he needs Grey Warden blood to break this cycle, in a merit of a joining, as we make the Taint one with ourselves and the Darkspawn can take our resistance to it. Some sentient Darkspawn instead sided with the Mother against the Architect, who herself was the first to be uplifted and subsequently went mad. She has control over the Darkspawn who are still at the whims of their nature and throws them against him. We agree to assist the Architect in slaying the Mother and delve deeper into the caverns. Finally face to face with the Mother, she reveals that the Architect was the one who found Euphemio, the Archdemon, and started the Fifth Blight. That he did not wish to start the Blight, but took the risk to free his kind. Regardless of the Architect's mistakes, the Mother is too dangerous to live, and we attack, initiating the final fight. Despite Anders and Nathaniel going down repeatedly, Velana's revival spell and the area of effect nature of the spam Nado from the mages made quick work of the Mother and her tentacles, as we clamber atop the beast and deal with the final blow. And then it was over. Truly this time. With the defeat of the Mother, it marks the end of Dragon Age Origins, Awakening, and its DLCs. And honestly, it was fantastic. Whilst the gameplay may not be to my taste, the writing present from the story and the characters in Origins and Awakening is incredible, and was more than enough to bring me back for more. It really felt like prime BioWare. But on that note, I'd like to thank you for watching this all the way through, and maybe consider liking and subscribing, because I plan to do videos like this for the rest of this series, but hopefully not taking as long as this video did, as well as uploading a bit more frequently in general. I'd really appreciate it. See ya!